Chapter 14:12. In the southern border of the god world, in front of Sunrise Divine Palace, a god was dyed red, shocking everyone. The war god, whose name shook the entire god realm, fell from the sky and crashed into the ground with a loud thud. In front of the divine palace, the moon goddess was frozen in shock. Gradually, an abnormally terrifying energy began to spread through the air, blotting out the sky and the moon. Within the god-slaying array, God Lord Qilin stared in shock at the moon goddess in front of him. Grief and rage intertwined, the moon goddess began to glow with white moonlight. Everyone stared at her in shock. The god-demon experts of the southern border all looked at the divine palace, their minds in turmoil. What had happened? Why was this energy so powerful? In front of the Sunrise Divine Palace, the moon goddess, who disliked war and was unwilling to fight with others, exploded. She was definitely at the 5th level. Her supreme divine power spread out, stirring up the wind and clouds. The cold moon trembled in the sky, and under the guidance of the moon goddess, chaotic energy descended from the heavens. This terrifying sight made both humans and gods tremble in fear. A divine bow appeared in the moon goddess's hand, its golden light illuminating the world. This is? Within the god-slaying array, God Lord Qilin grimaced. The primal chaos divine bow. The appearance of the divine bow caused the world to mourn. Blood erupted from the moon goddess's body, transforming into an arrow of blood that appeared on the bow. Die! Furious, the moon goddess's eyes turned scarlet. She pulled the primal chaos divine bow to its fullest and fired the arrow of blood. Within the god-slaying array, God Lord Qilin's face darkened as he gathered the energy of wind and lightning in his palms to block this attack. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the two forces collided head-on. A terrifying shockwave rippled out, and the entire southern border began to shake. Ugh! The shockwaves caused the moon goddess's hands to spurt blood, dyeing the bow red. In front of the god-slaying array, the 4 god lords who had taken the arrow of the primal chaos divine bow were also heavily injured. In their battle with the rising sun dragon god, the 4 of them had been severely injured and were no longer at their peak. Now that they were facing the crazed moon goddess, even the 4 hall masters of the god palaces began to show signs of fatigue. In front of the divine palace, the injured moon goddess ignored her injuries and once more pulled the primal chaos divine bow to its fullest. Her blood gathered into an arrow of blood that shot toward the 4 god lords. Boom! Strange lights constantly rose around the 4 of them as they used secret techniques to heal their injuries and barely managed to maintain the formation. The invincible god slayer war, and the invincible god experts. The 4 of them joined forces to take on the primal chaos god bow over and over again. In front of the Sunrise Divine Palace, the moon goddess had used up more than half of her blood chi, but the hatred in her eyes did not diminish. The chaos divine bow exuded a shocking power. Once the gods were enraged, they would not rest until they were dead. The moon goddess displayed an astonishing amount of willpower as she forcefully endured her injuries and continuously used the chaos divine bow to wear down the 4 divine masters' power. In the distance, Erin Ming Monarch clenched her fists as she watched the intense battle unfold. At the side, the white-haired figure in plain clothes stood there quietly, showing no intention of attacking. Ji Ming, what are you waiting for? In the end, Erin King couldn't hold it in any longer and asked. An opportunity to defeat the enemy. Ning Chen replied. If we wait any longer, the moon goddess might die. Erin King sternly said. 1,000 years ago, during the Demon Slayer War, the human realm was indebted to the moon goddess. We cannot sit by and do nothing. Ning Chen replied with a single word. Beneath his brows, which were covered in demonic patterns, there was no light in his cold eyes. Anger rose in Erin's heart. Was it really the right choice for Ji Ming to travel the god world as a demonic form? No matter what, she could not sit by and watch something happen to the moon goddess. With this thought in mind, Erin King began to gather energy as she prepared to attack. In front of the god palace, the moon goddess used her own blood to create arrows that constantly bombarded the god slayer array. Within the array, the 4 divine masters blocked one attack after another. Even though they were heavily injured, they still managed to block the moon goddess's frenzied attacks. Gradually, the moon goddess's blood nearly dried up, and she could no longer draw the chaos divine bow to its fullest. Around the divine palace, the rising sun divine generals watched the tragic battle in front of the divine palace. They wanted to help but were powerless to do so. Hold on. She won't be able to last much longer. Within the God Slayer array, God Lord Azure Dragon looked at the moon goddess and said. Before he finished speaking, the moon goddess, who had exhausted all her vitality, suddenly staggered in front of the sunrise divine palace. She could no longer hold on. Now is the time. God Lord Qilin's eyes erupted with blazing light as he shot forward like a bolt of lightning. The Qilin roared, swallowing the heavens and extinguishing the earth. God Lord Qilin gathered all his energy and unleashed his strongest attack. The divine generals watched in shock as the Qilin phenomenon opened its mouth and attempted to swallow the moon goddess. The moon goddess was about to fall, and at this critical moment, demonic chi erupted as a white-haired figure in plain robes stepped out and swung his sword to block God Lord Qilin's attack. The Qilin and the phoenix clashed once more, and the two massive phenomena clashed in the sky, throwing the winds and clouds into chaos. Nearby, Aaron King also appeared. When she saw Ji Ming standing in front of the moon goddess, her clenched fists gradually relaxed. He had finally intervened. Aaron, take the moon goddess and leave. Ning Chen coldly ordered from the rising sun divine palace. Aaron King nodded, and her figure flashed as she took the heavily injured moon goddess away from the battlefield. You again. Within the god-slaying array, God Lord Qilin looked at the white-haired youth in front of him and said in a low voice, You actually didn't die. Since none of you are dead, I naturally won't die either. The god-ending sword appeared in Ning Chen's hand, and blood-colored patterns spread across the sword before stabbing into his arm. A powerful sword might spread, causing the entire divine palace to tremble. Raise your sword. Ning Chen raised his hand and slashed the immortal sword with his left hand. Instantly, blood gushed out as an unparalleled sword intent howled and spread. As the sword intent spread, all things in the world trembled. Sword light soared into the sky, turning into sword clouds that lined the horizon. This was the strongest sword. The entire divine world was shaken, and all the sword-wielding gods in the vast divine world felt it and looked toward the rising sun divine palace. What a powerful sword intent! In the eastern part of the divine world, a youth with an ancient sword on his back felt the powerful sword intent ripples from the southern border and narrowed his eyes. The next moment, the youth's figure disappeared as he flew toward the southern border of the divine world. In the rising sun divine palace, the battle of the gods had come to an end. Knowing destiny had intervened and faced off against the four severely injured godlords. Ning Chen moved and 10,000 swords followed him. A shocking sword might slash toward the god-slaying array. The god-slaying array rumbled as the 10,000 swords shook the god-slaying array, which was already incomplete, suffered another blow and showed signs of collapse. Endless sword light spread across the god-slaying array like a flood. Tens of thousands of attacks struck at the same time, causing the four godlords to suffer even more injuries. Retreat! God Lord Qilin ordered from within the god-slaying array. The situation was unfavorable. The divine palace's army immediately retreated upon hearing the god lord's order. Since you're here, there's no need to leave. In front of the rising sun divine palace, Ning Chen waved his hand and summoned the remaining 3 immortal swords. Below the sunrise divine palace, on the ground, amidst the rolling waves of dust, a man dressed in golden battle robes lay in a pool of blood. He was almost dead. Big brother! With King Aaron's support, the moon goddess descended from the heavens and staggered forward. The former war god of the god world lay quietly in a pool of blood, his body bathed in blood. In that world-shaking battle, a god had sacrificed his life to protect the person he treasured the most. The moon goddess raised a trembling hand and stroked her brother's face, her heart in pain. Tens of thousands of years of depending on each other had vanished in a single day. Tears began to flow from the moon goddess's blood-red eyes. Even a god couldn't help but weep. Two immortals, could you step aside? At this moment, a young and tender voice sounded out timidly from behind the two of them. Hearing this, the moon goddess was shocked and turned around to look. Behind the pair, the small gourd was holding 3 drops of blood with astonishing divinity as it whispered, "Immortal elder sent me to save this immortal elder." 3 drops of heart blood, 1 drop of vermilion bird blood, 1 drop of phoenix blood, and the last drop was the small gourd's own blood. Chapter 14:13. 4 figures flew across the southern border. Knowing destiny chased after 3 god lords for 100,000 li, vowing to eliminate the source of the problem. In front of them, within the god-slaying array, the 3 god lords led by God Lord Qilin were still getting worse. Even their bodies would not be able to quickly recover from their heavy injuries. Behind them, the phoenix was flying at extreme speed. The Qilin and the phoenix were gods whose names had shaken the ancient era. Today, they would have their final battle. After running for 100,000 li, the Qilin, Azure Dragon, and White Tiger god lords found it difficult to shake off their pursuers. Their expressions turned grim as they rushed toward the Heaven Realm. However, the Heaven Realm was more than 1 million li away from the southern border, and the 3 god lords were severely injured. "You can't escape." As the phoenix flew past, Ning Chen emerged from its flames, ending immortal in his hand, his killing intent obvious. After another clash, Ning Chen's figure flashed as he slashed his sword at the even more heavily injured God Lord Qilin. God Lord Qilin was shocked, and he used what little divine yuan he had left to block the immortal sword. Rumble! God-slaying immortal sword sent God Lord Qilin flying back another 1,000 feet. Within the god-slaying array, the 3 god lords breathed together to disperse God Lord Qilin's injuries. The supposedly invincible god-slaying array had become a burden. The 3 god lords' injuries were accumulating faster and faster, and they were gradually finding it difficult to hold on. The 3 god lords also realized this. They looked at each other and were forced to sever their connection. The god-slaying array dispersed, and the 3 god lords returned to their original forms. A Qilin, an Azure Dragon, and a White Tiger appeared in the sky, their shocking might causing the world to change color. "Finally willing to come out of the turtle's shell?" Ning Chen coldly said as he looked at the 3 god lords. "Great Sword World." With a roar, ending immortal appeared in Ning Chen's hand, and a sword world appeared. Sword intent spread through the air, engulfing the entire battlefield. Within the sword world, strange light rose as the 3 immortal swords appeared once more, shrouded in a murderous aura. In the sky, 10,000 swords turned into a cloud of swords that slashed at the 3 god lords. Azure Dragon God-slaying order. Of the 3 god lords, God Lord Azure Dragon unleashed his full cultivation. Azure light dazzled as the image of a massive dragon appeared and clashed with the 10,000 swords. The heavily injured God Lord Azure Dragon found it difficult to block all these swords. The immortal slaying sword silently appeared, piercing through the dragon image and plunging into the God Lord's chest. Pooh! Blood dyed the sky red. Within the stream of swords, the white-haired figure reappeared and pressed a hand against God Lord Azure Dragon's head. Ah! God Lord Azure Dragon screamed as his divine yuan and blood energy were rapidly sucked away and devoured by the Chaos Devil Chi. Not far away, the Qilin and the White Tiger God Lords were stunned when they saw this scene. The 2 divine masters didn't even have 10% of their divine body's cultivations, so they had no choice but to harden their hearts and turn around to escape. "You think you can leave?" Ning Chen waved his sword amidst the thousands of sword streams. Sword light gushed out like a waterfall. The limitless sword of infinity shocked the heavens and earth. Wherever the sword passed, the void was destroyed. The 2 divine masters in front of him hurriedly tried to dodge, but their bodies were heavily injured, and they were powerless. Bang! In the clash of sword streams, the 2 divine masters were dyed red. The once renowned hall masters of the gods were like tigers that had fallen from grace, and now, they were being chased by the life-knowing expert. Damn it! The Qilin Pavilion Master was unwilling. His 10,000-year-old plan was about to succeed, but it had been destroyed in a single day. He was unwilling. Furious, the Qilin Pavilion Master's body seethed with divine yuan as he used the last of his energy to transform it into a sure-kill move that could slay gods and demons. The Qilin angrily roared in the air, blue lightning crackling around his body as he charged at the life-knowing expert. The Master of God's final counterattack was earth-shattering. As the Qilin stepped through the air, the void collapsed one after another. Ningchen narrowed his eyes at the Qilin phenomenon in front of him. Knowing that this was God Lord Qilin's final counterattack, Ningchen stomped on the ground and swiftly dodged. But the lightning-clad God Lord Qilin and the last of his cultivation were able to match the Phoenix's speed for a short period of time. After dodging for several seconds, the Qilin phenomenon finally arrived. Ningchen narrowed his eyes and waved his left hand, summoning a green cauldron that smashed toward the Qilin. Boom! The Qilin phenomenon crashed into the green cauldron, creating terrifying shockwaves. Behind it, Ningchen grabbed the flying green cauldron and retreated. Another 100 li blood trickled from the corner of God Lord Qilin's mouth, and he was already on the verge of death. Ugh! After persisting for a long time, God Lord Qilin suddenly staggered, the blood and energy in his body wildly scattering. In the distance, Ningchen instantly shot forward, the immortal ending slash mercilessly striking. God Lord Qilin's pupils constricted as he hastily dodged. Whoosh! There was the sound of clothes being torn as a bone-deep wound appeared on God Lord Qilin's chest. With a thump, Ningchen was forced back several steps, his sword-wielding hand numb. How about it? Are you going to fight or not? The youth sternly said. This unexpected calamity stimulated the demonic nature in Ningchen's heart. The immortal ending sword circulated with a baleful aura, and without wasting any more words, he charged forward. Good. The youth's eyes exploded with fighting intent as he unsheathed the ancient sword on his back. Autumn water sprinkled down, stunning everyone. The divine sword Autumn Water and the immortal sword Ending Sword clashed, filling the sky with killing intent. Swords intersected and palms surged. In the blink of an eye, several moves had clashed. The youth's eyes became more and more excited. It had been a long time since he had encountered such a powerful opponent. God-slaying Tao, Heaven's End. The Autumn Water turned, and soared light soared into the sky. The youth used the upper extreme Tao and slashed down. Sword technique, wind and thunder transformation. Ningchen focused and swung his sword. The winds and clouds of the 9 heavens were thrown into chaos as thunder roared through the world. The two extremes clashed, destroying the heavens and the earth. Amidst the berserk shockwaves, Ningchen's figure instantly vanished. The youth's expression turned serious as he became fully alert. But time passed, and Ningchen's figure still did not reappear. The youth finally realized that he had been tricked, and his face turned abnormally nasty. In the northwest of the southern border, Ningchen's figure was speeding through the area, pursuing God Lord White Tiger with all his strength. At the end of the southern border, Ningchen stopped in front of a sinister and ghostly land, his brow creased as he looked ahead. God Lord White Tiger's energy had vanished here. It seemed that he had entered this place. If possible, he truly did not want to enter this unknown place. But even if he didn't want to, he still had to enter. He had to obtain God Lord White Tiger's origin. With this thought in mind, Ningchen stepped forward into the ghostly land. This ghostly land was covered in corpses. Some of the corpses were so old that only bones remained. Ningchen looked ahead, his divine sense spread out as he remained on guard. In the past, it had always been others who forced him into danger, but today, it was the other way around. He hoped that God Lord White Tiger was not so short-lived. In the depths of this deathly land, the heavily injured God Lord White Tiger stumbled forward. Suddenly, he looked forward in shock. Before he had time to cry out in alarm, ghost chi surged out of his body and engulfed him. Behind him, Ningchen sensed the powerful ghost chi in front of him and swiftly rushed forward. Ningchen arrived in the depths of the deathly land. As he saw the ghost chi rapidly receding, he swung his sword, revealing a path. The ghost god axe exerted another 30% of its strength, directly smashing Ningchen into the ground. Spirit Rhino 12 Styles, Sky-Propping Waterfall. In this moment of crisis, Ning Chen circulated his true energy, drawing out the divine yuan in his body and unleashing a shocking move at the ghost god. The waterfall of divine yuan surged into the sky, and the ghost god felt an intense sense of danger. It raised its axe in front of it to block. Boom! The waterfall sent the ghost god flying 100 feet, smashing apart one palace after another. After a brief gasp, Ning Chen wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth, and as he scanned his surroundings, his expression turned grim. Just what sort of place was this? There was actually a level 5 ghost god presiding over it. This ghost god's strength was only SOSO, much weaker than the 5 god lords at their peak. The ghost god got up from the crumbling palaces and furiously roared. It took several steps forward and swung its axe down once more. Ning Chen slightly frowned at this, and then he began to take strange steps and vanish. A moment later, Ning Chen appeared behind the ghost god and leaped into the air. Ning Chen pressed a hand on the ghost god's head, causing demonic qi to surge out. "If you don't want to die, behave," Ning Chen said threateningly. The ghost god's body shook, and it didn't dare to move anymore. "Tell me, what is this place?" Ning Chen asked in a low voice. "The Netherworld," the ghost god replied. Ning Chen had heard of it before, and his eyes flashed. It was really the Netherworld. "Bring me to see your Yama King." Ning Chen withdrew his thoughts and said coldly, "Yes." The ghost god answered in fear, then turned and walked into the depths of the Netherworld. In the depths of the Netherworld, the two passed by many Yama palaces. Between the 10 Yama palaces, countless hells were revealed, and thousands of ghosts were being tortured. The scene was extremely terrifying. Ning Chen looked at the hells around him, and his heart was in turmoil. Perhaps this was the real Netherworld. But why was the Netherworld in the divine realm? The ghost god led knowing destiny around the 10 Yama palaces, but they didn't enter. Ning Chen released his divine perception, but he didn't feel any aura in the 10 Yama palaces. It was as if no one had entered the abyss-like palaces for a long time. Strange. Ning Chen became more and more confused. What was going on with this Netherworld? After the 10 Yama palaces, a huge palace appeared in front of them. The ghost god stopped and didn't dare to go forward. Here, the ghost god said in a trembling voice. "Go in," Ning Chen said coldly. "I don't dare." The ghost god was terrified and immediately shook his head. "If you enter the Yama King Palace without permission, your divine soul will be erased and you will never be reincarnated." Ning Chen frowned again and said in a low voice, "If you don't go in, I will erase your divine soul now." The ghost god trembled. Under the threat of life, he had no choice but to step forward. There wasn't a single guard in front of the Yama King Palace, but the palace was surrounded by a terrifying aura that wasn't inferior to any of the most powerful cultivators in the divine realm. The ghost god pushed open the door of the palace, and the Yama King Palace appeared in front of the two of them. In front of them was an empty palace, and there was no one in sight. The ghost god walked in fearfully, and his pace was extremely slow. "Hurry up!" Ning Chen's face revealed an impatient expression as he shouted. The ghost god trembled again and quickened his pace. In the depths of the palace, after the ghost fog was pushed aside, a throne made of divine bones appeared in front of them. It was displayed in the palace, but it was empty. No one was sitting on it. "Where's your Yama King?" Ning Chen asked. "I don't know," the ghost god replied in a trembling voice. "Have you seen your Yama King before?" Ning Chen frowned and asked. The ghost god pondered for a long time before replying, 30,000 years ago, I saw him once." 30,000 years? Ning Chen narrowed his eyes. That was a long time. Bang! At this moment, the Yama King Palace behind the two of them slammed shut. The loud noise gave the two of them a shock. Ning Chen turned around and looked behind him through the ghost fog. Suddenly, his expression changed. He grabbed the ghost god under him and dashed 1,000 feet away. Boom! In an instant, ghost arrows pierced through the air at the place where the two of them were just now. They were terrifying and directly sank into the ground. 1,000 feet away, the two of them had just stopped when more ghost arrows came. There was no beginning and no end. It was impossible to guard against them. Killing intent appeared on Ning Chen's face. He stabbed the celestial ending sword into the ground, and violent sword chi spread rapidly. In the violent tremor, with the two of them at the center, the entire palace was filled with sword chi, forcefully destroying everything in sight. White bones, statues, and huge stone pillars all disappeared in the sword chi and were completely crushed into powder. In 10 breaths, everything in front of them disappeared, leaving only the throne above the palace. Let's continue forward. Ningchen looked at the ghost god beside him and said indifferently. The ghost god did not dare to resist and could only lead the way. After the Yama King Palace, the end of the palace could not be seen. There were side palaces, but none of them had any signs of life. After walking for some time, the ghost god stopped and looked ahead. There's no way out. Ningchen also stopped. He glanced at the surrounding palace walls and immediately slashed with his sword. It was once owned by the ghost girl of the underworld. The ghost chi remained in it and did not completely dissipate. The tomb keeper felt it and his expression turned serious. It was really the aura of the Yama King. Leave first. The tomb keeper looked at the ghost god in front of him and ordered. Yes. The ghost god immediately accepted the order and hurriedly left. Ningchen did not stop him. After seeing the old man in front of him, this big guy was useless. The tomb keeper stepped forward and looked at the human man in front of him. He said, "What's your relationship with the Yama King?" Ningchen was silent. After a long time, he said, "I owe her too much." A strange look flashed in the tomb keeper's eyes. He nodded and said, "The Yama King has left the underworld for 30,000 years." Ningchen sighed in his heart. The demonic patterns on his face disappeared and he returned to his original appearance. "Can you let me see your divine soul?" The tomb keeper looked at the human man beside him and said. Ningchen was shocked when he heard that. "I have no ill intentions." The tomb keeper continued, "With your current strength, if I really want to attack you, you won't be able to leave alive." Ningchen was silent again. The old man was right. Although this tomb keeper did not have the shocking pressure of the 5 divine masters, he still felt a strong threat from the old man. He had felt this threat once when Bodhisattva Zihong was chasing him. "Senior, please." Thinking of this, Ningchen did not refuse and released his divine consciousness. The tomb keeper raised his hand and pressed it on the former's head. A peaceful aura entered and probed his divine soul. A moment later, the tomb keeper's body trembled and he silently retracted his hand. As expected, he was the person that the Yama King had found hundreds of thousands of years ago. "Senior, is there something wrong?" Ningchen looked at the old man beside him and asked in confusion. "Nothing." The tomb keeper shook his head gently and said, "Since you're already here, the Yama King will be back soon. Wait patiently." Ningchen frowned and said, "How long do I have to wait?" "I don't know." The tomb keeper said softly, "Maybe 10 years, maybe 100 years, maybe 10,000 years. I've already waited for so many years. There's no hurry." Ningchen heard this before and felt helpless. Asking was equivalent to not asking. Do all old people like to be mysterious so much? "Are you in a hurry?" The old man looked at the expression of the person beside him and asked in confusion, "Or do you have other things to do?" Ningchen nodded and said, "I do have other things to do. I can't keep waiting here." The old man sighed softly and said, "Then go do your own things first. If you and the Yama King are fated, you will meet." Ningchen nodded, thought for a moment and asked a question that still puzzled him. "Senior, when I was in the human world, I saw Een soldiers more than once. May I ask if these Een soldiers are from the underworld?" The old man did not hide and replied, "Where are these Een soldiers going?" Ningchen was puzzled. The number of levels in the sky depends on where the Een soldiers are going. The old man replied, "I don't understand." Ningchen said, "You will understand in the future." The old man's face was calm and said, "The most important thing for you to do now is to enter the 5th realm as soon as possible. There are many things in this world that you can only touch when you reach the corresponding level." Ningchen nodded and did not stay any longer. He bowed politely and said, "Senior, I'll take my leave first." "See you later," the old man said calmly. Ningchen turned around and went back the way he came. Not long after knowing Ming left, Ghost Immortal came and half knelt. "Go and restore the Yama King's palace to its original state and I'll pardon you," the old man said calmly. Ghost Immortal trembled and said respectfully, "Yes." Ghost Immortal got up and left quickly. In the underworld, Ning Chen went back the way he came and walked out of the underworld. The way back was unusually smooth. Not long after, Ning Chen reached the exit of the underworld. Ning Chen looked back at the underworld behind him. After thinking for a while, he turned around and walked out. Perhaps it was just as the old man said. Before he reached the corresponding level, he was not qualified to know some things. Ning Chen walked out of the underworld and appeared in the nameless dead land. Before he could go out, wind and thunder roared in the 9 heavens. The scene was terrifying. Heavenly tribulation. Ning Chen was shocked. His cultivation level was not enough to enter the 5th realm. Why would there be a heavenly tribulation? Boom. Before Xiaoqun could finish his thoughts, thousands of lightning bolts descended from the 9 heavens. It was an unprecedentedly horrifying might, shocking the world. Ning Chen looked at the countless lightning bolts falling from the sky and his expression changed. How was this a heavenly tribulation? It was obvious that the heavens wanted his life. Not daring to be careless, Ning Chen stepped forward and rushed forward. Boom, boom, boom. Behind Ning Chen, lightning bolts fell one after another, blasting open the ground and shattering the void. The extremely terrifying heavenly tribulation was even more terrifying than the heavenly tribulation of the 5th realm experts of the God world. Inside Ning Chen's body, 5 divine auras surged and shook, trying to break out of his body. "Be quiet!" Ning Chen shouted angrily. Chaotic true qi burst out of his body and forcibly suppressed the divine aura. In that brief moment of distraction, the extreme speed slowed down, and thousands of lightning bolts crashed down. With a bang, Ning Chen was directly blasted into the ground by the terrifying lightning. His back was charred black. "Damn heavens, are you crazy?" Ning Chen staggered to his feet. He did not dare to hesitate and hurriedly continued to run for his life. Above the 9 heavens, dark clouds rolled and the endless power of the heavenly tribulation was brewing. It turned into angry lightning bolts and fell from the sky. In the northwest of Nanjiang, in the nameless dead land, the figure of a knowing destiny state expert sped past. Behind him, lightning bolts fell from the sky. The terrifying scene was shocking. Thousands of angry lightning bolts fell endlessly. Ning Chen passed through the lightning bolts, not daring to stay for a moment. The origin of the 4 divine symbols had gathered. Heaven and earth could not tolerate it. The heavenly punishment was to punish those who defied the heavens. Ning Chen ran as fast as he could to avoid the lightning bolts one after another. He kept cursing and swearing. A heavenly tribulation of this level was not something that a 5th realm expert of the heaven realm could encounter, let alone him. This damn heavens obviously wanted to kill him. Boom. Above the 9 heavens, dark clouds rolled and countless lightning bolts fell from the sky. Ning Chen rushed out of the land of death. Behind him, the ground was scorched and stretched for thousands of miles. Not even a blade of grass grew. The strongest heavenly tribulation killed the first heaven-defying expert to gather the origin of the 4 divine symbols since ancient times. Boom, boom, boom. Above the void, lightning bolts broke through the sky and lit up the dim world. Ning Chen's figure sped past and disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, in the sky, endless lightning bolts chased after him. They seemed to have their own consciousness. For an entire day and night, Ning Chen had fled far away. Before this, he was chasing after others. In the blink of an eye, he was called a fugitive. The wrath of the heavens could not be stopped by humans. Ning Chen tried to block it, but he was directly struck by thousands of angry lightning bolts and fell to the ground. Ning Chen's face was filled with anger and hatred, but there was nothing he could do. This kind of heavenly tribulation, even the strongest experts of the divine world could not stop it. On the southern border, Ning Chen's figure flashed. After running for another half a day, a familiar aura appeared in front of him. Although it was far away, he could feel it clearly. Feeling the familiar aura in front of him, Ning Chen was stunned at first, then joy appeared on his face. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Then, let's suffer together. In the sky, thousands of lightning bolts struck down, covering thousands of miles. The two of them could not dodge in time and were both hit by the heavenly tribulation. Boom, boom. Two sounds of falling to the ground were heard. Ning Chen and the young man in white were both smashed into the ground. What did you do? The young man in white got up and cursed as he ran. I just killed a few people. Ning Chen replied. He did not dare to stay for a moment. He answered while running. Bullshit. Even if you killed 1,000,000 people, the heavenly tribulation should not be so terrifying. The young man in white did not believe him and cursed. Boom. In the sky above them, the green lightning was getting darker and darker. It was gradually turning black. The young man in white looked up and his expression changed. The ultimate 9 heavenly tribulation. Don't chase me anymore. I apologize. A wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. The young man in white looked at the heavenly tribulation in the sky and quickly apologized. It's too late. Ning Chen snorted and said, if I'm unlucky, you won't have it easy either. Let's suffer together. Lunatic. The young man in white cursed again. He turned around and ran towards the south. Ning Chen quickly followed and did not want to be left behind. The two of them flew towards the south, one in front and one behind. Another day and night passed. The two of them were struck down by lightning countless times, and they chewed on mud countless times. In any case, the clothes on their bodies had already been charred, and there were black and white patches on their bodies, causing them to look extremely miserable. 10,000 miles to the east of the Sunrise Divine Palace, the two of them sped past without stopping. In front of the Sunrise Divine Palace, Empress Erin saw the scene in front of her and was stunned. What was going on? Boom. In the distant sky, the terrifying sound of the heavenly tribulation could be heard clearly even in the Sunrise Divine Palace, which was 10,000 miles away. The fluctuation that could destroy the heavens and earth was really chilling. Empress Erin looked at the direction where Jiming disappeared and could not hide the waves in her heart. What did Jiming do to attract such a terrifying heavenly tribulation? South of the southern border, the realm of the gods was about to reach the end. The two of them continued to move forward, not daring to stop for a moment. In the sky, terrifying lightning struck down one after another, forming a sea of lightning that blasted towards the two of them. Ning Chen did not want to let the young man in front of him have it easy either. He continued to chase after them without stopping for a moment. In front of him, the young man gritted his teeth in hatred and was so regretful that his intestines turned green. He was just looking for someone to spar with. He did not expect to attract so much trouble. He didn't believe that he couldn't get rid of the fiend behind him. However, the young man didn't expect that Jiming had a phoenix body and was more fearless of flames than anyone else. After traveling for an hour, the young man in white felt that the person behind him still hadn't been rescued. He suddenly had a headache. The autumn water divine sword soared into the sky. The young man in white turned around and used the extreme Dao. He slashed with his sword, making a final counterattack. Behind him, Ning Chen saw the sword chi breaking through the sky and his expression changed slightly. He used the celestial slash to block in front of him. With a loud rumble, Ning Chen was pushed back several feet by the sword chi and barely managed to stabilize his body. Boom! At this moment, lightning fell from the sky again and swallowed Jiming's body. In front of him, the young man in white immediately changed his direction and ran for his life. Under the flames, Ning Chen got up and looked in the direction the young man left. He quickly chased after him. The two of them chased and ran for another 2 hours. The sea of fire gradually came to an end. In front of them, a world of nothingness appeared. They couldn't see anything as far as their eyes could see. Without a choice, the two of them rushed into the world of nothingness. In the sky, the lightning that filled the air quickly dissipated and disappeared. Seeing this, the two of them were both stunned. What happened? After the heavenly tribulation disappeared, the young man in white stopped. His face was burning with anger. He had been holding it in for several days and now it all exploded. Behind him, Ning Chen also stopped. He looked at the scene of nothingness around him and frowned slightly. Where was this? Was this the end of the world or the end of the world? The sword light was dazzling. The young man in white attacked angrily. His sword aura was earth-shattering. Ningchen came back to his senses and blocked the autumn water divine sword with his sword. I'm going to kill you. The young man in white looked at the person in front of him and said while gritting his teeth, Unfortunately, you can't kill me. Ningchen said indifferently. His left hand moved, and chaotic true essence surged. He counterattacked with a palm. The young man in white turned his palm to block. In the violent impact, the two of them separated. God-slaying path, God-slaying. The young man in white pointed, and a dazzling white light shot into the sky. The autumn water divine sword hummed and tore through the air. The God-slaying sword shone in the sky. In front of him, Ningchen focused and also pointed, using his ultimate move. Sword technique, heavenly sword. The same ultimate move on the sword. In the world of nothingness, the two horrifying sword auras collided. The sword intent spread to an unknown place. In the nothingness, the two of them kept crossing each other. They fought for a long time. Both of them were geniuses of the sword. After practicing for 1,000 years, they had reached an unreachable level. Boom! The two swords clashed. After 1,000 moves, the two of them were soaked in sweat. Most of their true essence had been used up. In the world of nothingness, the two of them could not replenish their divine essence. They were so tired that they could not fight anymore. Boom! After another violent collision, the two of them separated. The young man in white looked at the man in white in front of him. Although he was gnashing his teeth, he could not do anything to him. I'm not fighting anymore. The young man in white put away his sword and said unhappily. Ningchen raised his hand to wipe off the blood at the corner of his mouth. Then he put away his sword and said, Fine, I won't fight anymore. The young man in white looked around and felt a headache coming on. What the hell is this place? Ningchen also looked at the surrounding nothingness. He did not know where the way back was. Where is this? The young man in white asked. I don't know. Ningchen answered straightforwardly, You ran here. Don't you know where this is? Your heavenly tribulation is so scary. How could I care about where to run? The young man in white said, gritting his teeth. Ningchen shrugged and said, Since you don't know, then let's find the way back together. The young man in white suppressed the anger in his heart and replied. If it wasn't for the fact that he had no other choice, he really didn't want to join forces with this person. In the world of nothingness, the two of them walked aimlessly, looking for a way out. However, after walking for a few days, they still didn't notice any changes in the surroundings. The vast and boundless world of nothingness seemed to be the end of the world. All the laws no longer existed, including time and space. If we continue walking like this, we won't be able to get out for the rest of our lives. After walking for an unknown period of time, Ningchen stopped and said in a low voice, What method do you have? The young man in white frowned. Ningchen was silent for a long time before he said, I came from the mortal world to the God realm. When I came from the mortal world to the God realm, I needed the guidance of a god. Otherwise, it would be easy to get lost in a different time and space. Now, we also need someone to guide us in order to find the way back. When the young man in white heard this, a strange light flashed in his eyes and he said, Where can we find someone to guide us back? Ningchen had a headache. Right, where could they find someone to guide them now? Got it. Suddenly, Ningchen's eyes lit up. Wasn't there still a man? Mortal world, do you want to go? Ningchen looked at the young man in white and asked. Mortal world. The young man in white was stunned, and then he said, There's only one way for someone from the God realm to enter the mortal world, and that's to destroy their physical body and descend into the mortal world as a soul. I don't want to reincarnate so quickly. If you want to go, then go. I won't go. Then you can stay here, Ningchen said, and then he closed his eyes and started to use his heart to sense a man's aura. The mortal world, an unknown place. Man sensed something and was stunned. Ningchen? Man closed his eyes and used all his strength to sense the former's aura. In different worlds, separated by endless time and space, Two people connected by heart could sense each other and locate each other's position. Found it. Ningchen opened his eyes and looked to the right. Without saying anything, he turned around and rushed over. Although it was slightly blurry, he could sense that a man was in this direction. Wait for me. Behind him, the young man in white was anxious when he saw this, and he hurriedly followed. If I die, then I die. Even if I reincarnate, it's better than being trapped here. At most, I'll be a hero 18 years later. Aren't you afraid of death? Ningchen asked as he hurried over. I am. The young man in white said rationally. But reincarnating is better than being trapped here. That's what I think too. Ningchen replied casually and continued forward. Back then, the 7 Jew heavens had descended to the mortal world in the form of divine sense and almost destroyed the divine land. He could try this method. As long as he could contact his friends in the mortal world, he would have a way to return to the divine realm. Just as knowing destiny was lost at the end of the divine realm, in southern border, in the rising sun divine palace, divine flames soared into the sky and an earth-shattering power spread rapidly. A golden figure walked out of the flames. Behind him, the illusions of the phoenix, the vermilion bird, and the three-legged golden crow appeared. A moment later, the three figures merged into one and turned into a huge golden sun. Since the divine realm opened, the first true sun god had appeared. He controlled the light of the world and his power was shocking. In the rising sun divine palace, the moon goddess, who was recuperating, felt something and walked out of the palace. She looked at the man in the flames in the sky with tears in her eyes. Her brother had finally woken up. In the flames, the rising sun god opened his eyes. His expression was dignified and stern. I'm sorry for making you worry, the rising sun god said calmly. It's good that you're awake. The moon goddess suppressed her excitement and replied. Below, Erin Ming looked at the sky, and her heart was also stirred. She had a feeling that the war god of the divine realm was stronger than before. Thank you, said the rising sun dragon god as he looked at the woman below. No need to thank me. If you want to thank me, wait for knowing destiny to return and thank him, Erin Ming replied. Where is he now? The rising sun god asked as he descended from the sky and retracted his aura. A month ago, I saw the high priest chasing someone to the extreme south. He hasn't returned yet, the moon goddess replied. The extreme south? The rising sun demon god frowned. The southernmost region is an extremely dangerous fiery region. Even gods can be burned to death there. You all wait here. I will go and bring him back. With that, the rising sun god disappeared and flew toward the extreme south. Chapter 14:14. At the end of heaven and earth, in the void space, the two of them walked forward for an unknown amount of time. Can you really sense the human world? You're not lying to me, right? After walking for an unknown amount of time, the white-robed youth looked at the man beside him and asked, Don't follow me if you don't believe me. Ningchen said in annoyance. Why was a follower so nosy? One had to lower one's head when under someone else's roof. The white-robed youth had no choice but to shut up and follow him quietly. Seems like we're almost there. Gradually, Ningchen felt his heart pulse getting clearer and clearer. His expression turned serious as he spoke. The white-robed youth was overjoyed. However, after a moment, the smile on his face disappeared again. Was he going to reincarnate so soon? There didn't seem to be anything to be happy about. Do you think we'll have memories after reincarnating? The white-robed youth looked at the person beside him and asked nervously. How would I know? I've never reincarnated. Ningchen said with disdain. Why don't you look afraid at all? The white-robed youth asked in confusion. I'm not going to reincarnate. Why should I be afraid? Ningchen said calmly. The white-robed youth was stunned. If you're not going to reincarnate, how are you going to go to the human world? I have my own plans, Ningchen replied. The white-robed youth secretly gave him the middle finger. He was being mysterious now. While the two of them were talking, a bright light appeared far away in the void world. It was like the dawn of the night, illuminating the human world. We're here. Seeing this, the white-robed youth laughed and said, Hurry up. After saying that, The white-robed youth sped up and rushed forward. Behind him, Ning Chen followed casually. His speed was indeed not inferior to the white-robed youth. The two of them moved forward. Soon, they arrived at the place where the light appeared. In front of them was a blurry and unapproachable world. It seemed to be far away, yet close at the same time. The two of them wanted to move forward but found that it was difficult to move forward. "What should we do?" the white-robed youth said anxiously. "Break it open." The immortal ending sword appeared in Ning Chen's hand and he slashed forward. The white-robed youth also pulled out the autumn water divine sword and slashed forward. The sword light surged with unparalleled power. The two Fifth Realm swordsmen worked together, trying to open a path forward. However, the irreversible Great Tao rules turned into their sword chi. Fuck! After struggling for an unknown period of time, the white-robed young man was so tired that he was gasping for breath. He cursed and stopped for the time being. At the side, Ning Chen also stopped and wiped the sweat off his face. "I have no other choice," the white-clothed youth said helplessly. "People from the divine realm can't descend to the mortal world." "It seems like the rumors are true." Ning Chen looked at the blurry scene in front of him and narrowed his eyes slightly. "Help me look after my body. I'm going down for a bit." As he spoke, Ning Chen released his spirit consciousness. His 3 souls and 7 spirits left his body and flew forward. The white-clothed youth was startled and hurriedly shouted, "Come back quickly." "I know." Ning Chen replied, "Take good care of my physical body. Otherwise, I won't come back." As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Chen's spirit disappeared into the white light. Behind him, the white-robed youth released his divine essence to protect the former's body. In the human world, in an unknown place, a dim light rose, ghosts ran amok, and eerie whistling sounds could be heard. In an unknown place, a beautiful young girl sat cross-legged. A powerful pressure spread around her. She was actually about to break through to the 5th realm. At this moment, in the sky above the unknown place, an illusory figure appeared. He looked at the young girl below and was stunned. Why was man in this damned place? Below, man sensed it. She looked at the spirit in the sky and smiled sweetly. "You're here. Why are you here?" In the sky, Ning Chen asked, "What is this place?" "It seems to be an ancient land of miracles." Man stood up and looked around. She said softly, "I accidentally barged in and can't get out." Ning Chen heard this and felt a headache. This girl was really not an ordinary person. She could find such a strange place every time. "Don't worry, I'm fine. I'll be able to get out soon." Man smiled sweetly. "Did you get anything?" Ning Chen asked curiously. "There are some mystical abilities. Do you want them?" Man asked. "Not now. I'll wait until you come to the divine realm." Ning Chen smiled. "Do you know where Luo Xingchen and the others are?" "I don't know." Man shook her head. "Not long ago, a divine pagoda fell in Alcade's starfield. Luo Xingchen and the others should have gone to seize it." Alcade's starfield. Ning Chen looked up into the starry sky and felt a headache coming on. It was so far away. "Didn't you go to the divine realm? Why did you come down?" Man gazed at Ning Chen's spirit with a puzzled expression. "It's a long story. To put it simply, I'm lost and can't go back." Ning Chen smiled. "So, I descended to the mortal world to find someone to lead the way." "I don't understand." Man answered. Ning Chen scratched his head and said, "I can't explain it in a short time. I'm a spirit, so I can't stay here for long. I have to find Luo Xingchen and the others as soon as possible." "Man, are you going to the divine realm after you come out from here?" "If you want to, then I'll go get you." Man's eyes curved as she replied. "All right, it's a promise." Ning Chen was in a good mood and smiled. "I'll be leaving first. Work hard on your cultivation and try to come out as soon as possible." Man nodded with force. "Good girl." Ning Chen laughed and didn't say anything else. His figure flashed and flew toward the Alcade starfield. At the same time, in the void world, the white-robed young man protected the knowing destiny physical body and waited in boredom. Suddenly, a huge hand appeared in the void world and slapped down at the young man. In the void world, the existence of the two had finally attracted the great Tao Law to clean up the intruders in the void world. Seeing this, the white-robed young man's expression changed, and he fled with the knowing destiny physical body. It's over, it's over. Before this guy comes back, I'll probably be slapped to death by the great Tao Law. In the void, the huge hand followed like a shadow. Its terrifying power terrified gods and demons. Unable to dodge in time, the autumn water divine sword appeared behind the white-robed young man's back, and he slashed forward. With a loud bang, the divine realm wailed. Blood spurted from the corner of the white-robed young man's mouth. He was severely injured in just one move. Fuck! His old injury hadn't healed yet, and new blood was added to it. The white-robed young man cursed and sped up. The great Tao Law was too terrifying. He couldn't stop it. The void world changed. In the mortal world, Ningchen didn't know about it, but he knew he couldn't stay in the mortal world as a divine soul, so he rushed toward the Alcade starfield. On a life planet in the Alcade starfield, the Source Crystal Tower sat. Inside the tower, the Yama kings of the underworld had been cultivating in concentration for more than 100 years. In the past 100 years, their cultivation had improved rapidly. With the help of the divine realm's origin in the Source Crystal Tower, they broke through their cultivation bottlenecks again and again. Around the life planet, endless heaven and earth spiritual qi gathered. A huge spiritual qi vortex was very eye-catching. In the starry sky, Ningchen rushed over. When he got closer, he finally noticed the divine soul mark he had left in the Source Crystal Tower. A few days later, Ningchen appeared in the sky above the life planet and rushed down. Above the Source Crystal Tower, Ningchen stopped and looked at the tower below. He had a headache. How could he get in? He was now a divine soul, and all his power was in his physical body. If he rushed in, he would be torn to pieces by the spiritual qi vortex around the tower. Only after descending to the mortal world did he know how powerful the Nether King was when he came to the divine land. Above the Source Crystal Tower, Ningchen waited for a few days, but no one came out. He couldn't help but feel anxious. Ningchen had no choice but to look to the east of the life planet and fly away. In front of the palace of the Tianhe dynasty, a huge statue stood there. It was wearing white clothes and had white hair. It was vivid. 1,000 years ago, the Demon Slayer War had attracted the attention of the world. Knowing Destiny had become a god. Statues of Knowing Destiny had been erected in many places in the mortal world. Ningchen rushed over. Seeing the statue, he directly entered it. In the next moment, the statue rumbled and moved. In front of the royal palace, the soldiers standing guard were shocked when they saw this scene. The statue that was worshipped by the people had a trace of divinity in the past 1,000 years. Ningchen had temporarily gained a trace of power with the power of faith of the people. In the main hall of the Tianhe Palace, a guard quickly walked in. He bowed respectfully and said hurriedly, "My king, the statue outside the palace has come to life." On the throne, King Tianhe was shocked. He immediately got up and walked out of the hall. Outside the palace, Ningchen was in the statue. He looked at the people and soldiers kneeling around and said, "Rise." A miracle had appeared. The people were very excited. A god had come to the mortal world. Not long after, King Tianhe quickly walked over. After seeing the miracle was real, he immediately bowed. "No need to be so polite." Ningchen said, "Are you the king here?" King Tianhe said respectfully. "Help me do something," Ningchen said calmly. Ningchen said calmly, "I will protect your dynasty for 300 years." Hearing this, King Tianhe was excited. He said, "I will obey the god's order. There is a tower 1,000 miles away from here. Send 300 soldiers to curse day and night until someone comes out of the tower," Ningchen said. King Tianhe was stunned. He didn't understand. "What do you think?" Ningchen said in a slightly deeper voice. King Tianhe immediately came back to his senses and answered respectfully. A few days later, 300 soldiers of the Tianhe dynasty rushed to the Source Crystal Tower and started cursing according to the king's order. In the Source Crystal Tower, the Yama kings were focused on their cultivation and were not affected. However, time passed day by day. Outside the tower, the cursing never stopped. the 300 soldiers set up camp and took turns. When their mouths were dry, they would change to the next batch and continue. This strange scene lasted for 10 days. In the Source Crystal Tower, Luo Xingqian suddenly opened his eyes with anger. It had been 10 days. He didn't want to bother with these mortals, but it was not over. Calm down. Not far away, Mu Qianshang said calmly. Come, I will go out and teach them a lesson. Luo Xingqian got up and walked out of the tower. Outside the tower, a group of soldiers was tired of cursing. Another group of soldiers went up. Just as they were about to curse, they were immediately sent flying by a powerful true yuan. At this moment, the door of the Source Crystal Tower opened. Luo Xingqian, dressed in purple, walked out angrily. He looked at the many soldiers outside and cursed. Have you idiots been struck dumb by lightning? Do you have nothing better to do than to come here to die? Chapter 14:15. 1,000 miles to the west of the Tianhe dynasty, 300 soldiers took turns cursing. 10 days later, the gate of the Source Crystal Tower opened and Luo Xingqian walked out angrily, cursing without saying a word. 10 days, he had endured it for 10 days. In the tower, separated by the two realms, he couldn't hear what these people were cursing. However, with such strong resentment, he didn't need to think to know how unpleasant these people were cursing. Outside the tower, a group of soldiers saw the people coming out of the tower. They were stunned for a moment before they were showered with curses. They're out, they're out. The leader of the 300 soldiers, the general of the Tianhe dynasty, was overjoyed. He couldn't care less about the curses in front of him. After 10 days, someone finally came out. Behind him, the 300 soldiers were also overjoyed. No one could stand being cursed for 10 days without doing anything every day. Soldiers, we're retreating. The leading general looked at the 300 soldiers behind him and ordered. The 300 soldiers shouted happily and immediately packed up the temporary tents, mounted their horses, and left. In front of the Source Crystal Tower, Luo Xingqian was stunned when he saw this scene. What's going on? Hey, don't go! Luo Xingqian hurriedly shouted. However, the 300 soldiers who were in a hurry to go home ignored him and left on their horses. Don't go! Luo Xingqian anxiously shouted a few times from behind. In the end, he reluctantly put down his hand. Yo, you're finally willing to come out. At this moment, an illusory figure appeared in the void. He looked at the people below and spoke. A familiar voice entered Luo Xingqian's ears. He was stunned when he saw the figure in the void. Knowing Destiny's state? Luo Xingqian was pleasantly surprised. Just as he was about to speak, he seemed to have remembered something. He looked at the 300 soldiers in the distance and said angrily, So it's all you're doing. You're all holed up in there and no one wants to come out. I had no choice but to do this, Ningchen said with a fake smile. Luo Xingqian looked up and down at Knowing Destiny's state in the void. The corners of his mouth curled up as he gloated. How did you end up like this? What about your physical body? Could it be that you were killed by someone? Bah! Ning Chen's expression was one of disdain, and he said, Can't you be a little bit nicer to me? I came down from the immortal realm, and my physical body can't pass through. I can only descend to the lower realm in the form of a divine spirit. Oh, our Marquis must be bored. Why did he come down from the realm of the gods? Don't tell me you miss us old friends? Luo Xingqian's face was full of disbelief as he spoke. Ning Chen smiled awkwardly and said, That's part of the reason, so I asked a friend for help. No, I'm too busy. Luo Xingqian said and turned around to walk towards the Origin Crystal Tower behind him. Don't, let's talk things over. In the air, Ning Chen revealed an anxious expression and said, It's just a small favor. A small favor? Luo Xingqian stopped and turned around to look at Jiming in the air, and mocked, Why would you torture yourself for a small favor? Coming down to the lower realm, who are you trying to fool? Speak, what's the matter? Ning Chen rubbed his nose and said awkwardly, I'm trapped in the void at the end of the world. I need someone to guide me back to the divine world. Can you go to the Reverence Moon Ancient Land and ask the moon god to light up a beacon for me? A treasure of the same grade as this tower. Luo Xingchen pointed at the origin crystal tower behind him and said calmly, "Why don't you go rob someone?" Ning Chen said angrily, "I won't go if I don't agree." Luo Xingchen's expression said, "I'll eat you up." Ning Chen looked at the former's annoying expression and clenched his fists. If he wasn't a divine spirit, he really wanted to go down and beat this brat up. "Go call Mu Qianshang and the others out, I won't let you help me," Ning Chen said through gritted teeth. "Goodbye, we won't meet again," Luo Xingchen said and wanted to return to the tower. "Alright, I promise you." In the air, Ning Chen hurriedly said, compromising again. "That's it then." Luo Xingchen turned around and said with a smile, "I'll go to the Reverence Moon Ancient Land to deliver the letter for you, you can stay here and catch up with them." With that said, Luo Xingchen waved his hand to disperse the whirlpool of spiritual energy around the origin crystal tower and shouted, "Ji Ming is back, come out." Inside the origin crystal tower, Luo Xingchen's voice reverberated, waking up everyone who was in seclusion. "Young master is back?" Ruo Shi was the first to recover from her daze and exclaimed in surprise. Beside her, Qing Ning also opened her eyes, excitement flickering in the depths of her eyes. "Why is this brat back?" Mu Qianshang got up and asked in confusion. Outside the origin crystal tower, Luo Xingchen did not linger after seeing everyone come out. He leaped in the direction of the Reverence Moon Ancient Land. Delivering a letter in exchange for an origin crystal tower level treasure, it was a worthwhile trade. "Young master." Inside the origin crystal tower, Ruo Shi trotted out. When she saw Ning Chen in the air, she was stunned. "Ruo Shi, long time no see." Above the void, Ning Chen looked at the girl below with a faint smile. "Young master, how did you become like this?" Ruo Shi asked anxiously. "I'm fine, don't worry." Ning Chen hurriedly comforted her. "Yo Ji Ming, what happened? Did someone kill you?" At this time, Mu Qianshang also walked out, gloating. "Scram, how did you become the same as Luo Xingchen?" Ning Chen was so angry that his soul almost shook, cursing. Behind him, Luo Fei, Xia Zi, and the others also walked out. When they saw Ji Ming's appearance, strange expressions appeared on their faces. "Ji Ming, how did you become like this?" Luo Fei asked with a smile. "It's a long story." Ning Chen sighed. "I came down to the mortal world to take a look." "Hurry up, I've been waiting in the divine world for more than 100 years. "What's the divine world like?" Mu Qianshang asked curiously. "Emperors walk everywhere, and kings are as common as dogs." Ning Chen answered. Mu Qianshang's chest tightened. They had cultivated for so long, but if they went up, they would still be bullied. How can it be so exaggerated? At the back, Qing Ning walked out with a smile. It's not like Yueshan didn't mention the situation in the divine world. There are many experts, but most of them are ordinary people. Sister Qing Ning. Looking at the person who came, Ning Chen became more honest and called out softly. "After going to the divine world, your temper has become a lot wilder." Qing Ning looked at Ji Ming in the void and smiled. "Why are you in such a hurry to let us go up? Did you cause trouble again?" "Fortunately." Ning Chen touched his nose and said, "Provoked 2 great sects, and now one is destroyed. There's only one left." "I knew it," Qing Ning said in a bad mood. "Where's Yin? That girl didn't come." Ning Chen looked at the people below. Only Yin was missing and asked. "She's at Heaven's Speech Peak." Qing Ning replied, "That girl has the Heaven Speech origin in her body, so she's close to heaven and earth. It doesn't matter where she cultivates." "That's true." Ning Chen nodded. To a certain extent, a heaven speaker was equivalent to heaven and earth. If Yin was serious, not many people in the world would dare to provoke her. Just as Ji Ming was meeting his friends in the human world, in the void, the young man in white was carrying Ning Chen's body and running for his life. There were a few times when he was almost killed by the Great Path Law. "Ning Chen, if you don't come back, you'll have to collect my corpse." The young man in white scolded as he ran. Boom! In the void, the giant hand slapped down again with shocking power. The young man in white's expression changed, and he faced it with his sword again. Rumbling sounds echoed in the void. The the young man in white was sent flying by the giant hand. Even with his peerless cultivation, it was difficult to resist the power of the great path law. Blood flowed from the corner of the young man's mouth, but he didn't dare to stay for a moment and continued running for his life. In the human world, Ning Chen waited for a few days. The time he had to meet his friends was always so short. Luo Xingchen's return meant that Ning Chen's time in the human world had come to an end. Yueshan will light a beacon for you in the divine world. Be careful, Luo Xingchen said seriously, which was rare for him. Ning Chen nodded and glanced at everyone present, bidding them farewell one by one. I'll wait for you in the divine world. As he spoke, Ning Chen's figure rose into the sky and swept toward the horizon. Sir, be careful. Below Ruo she shouted with tears in her eyes. In the void, Ning Chen returned through the great path law. Relying on the connection between him and his body, he quickly rushed over. In the distance, above the void, the giant hand kept slapping down, chasing after the young man in white. Ning Chen rushed over and immediately rushed forward. With a rumble, the young man in white was sent flying again. When he saw the figure in front of him, his face lit up with joy and he threw the body on his shoulder over. Hurry up, protect your body. I'm going to be burdened to death. Thank you. Ning Chen's soul flew over and directly sank into the body. His soul and body merged into one. Suddenly, a powerful aura erupted and phoenix fire filled the air. He turned into a stream of light and flew away. In the divine world, in the extreme south of the fire domain, the rising sun god came with Yueshan. Are you sure you want to stay here? Yes. Yueshan nodded. The high priest has lost his way here. If he's too far away, he might not be able to see the light I lit for him. As she spoke, moonlight rose from Yueshan's body. Endless divine power filled the air and turned into a bright moon that illuminated the entire fire domain. In the fire domain, the extreme yang heavenly fire burned with terrifying temperatures. The rising sun god had to protect Yueshan personally to prevent her from being injured by the heavenly fire. In the void, the phoenix flew faster and faster. In the sky, the giant hand followed and crushed down several times. In the phoenix vision, sword energy rampaged. Two peerless swordsmen joined forces to resist the great path law. After several clashes, both of them suffered heavy injuries. The great path law was far more terrifying than the gods and Buddhas. At this time, a divine moon rose at the edge of the void. It was so bright and dazzling. Over there, inside the phoenix vision, the young man in white's voice sounded excitedly. I see it. Ning Chen replied and transformed into a phoenix, flying forward at top speed. In the southernmost part of the god realm, the heavenly fire raged in the fire domain. Even the rising sun god, a fire god, was starting to feel strained. In the heavenly fire, Yueshan burned her divine yuan and lit up the light that illuminated the void. The two gods did their best to bring knowing destiny back at all costs. Boom! In the void, the phoenix flew over quickly. The giant hand formed by the great path law seemed to have a mind of its own as it slammed down on Yueshan. ###1422 to 1423, 4 symbols origins. In the southernmost part of the god realm, the endless fire domain was filled with flames, turning the world into a sea of fire. This was a good thing. He hoped AI Ran would succeed this time. High Priest, your aura is chaotic and your injuries are serious. What happened? Yueshan asked the man in front of her. It's a long story. Ning Chen told the two of them everything that had happened recently. He didn't hide anything. He owed Yueshan a debt of gratitude and could trust her. As for the rising sun god, although they didn't talk much, he had some understanding of the rising sun divine palace's master after a few interactions. He was proud, cold, and clearly distinguished between kindness and hatred. He was a trustworthy person. So the underworld is in the south. The rising sun god's eyes narrowed when he heard Ning Chen's words. How much do you know about the underworld? Ning Chen looked at the rising sun divine palace's master and asked seriously. Not much, the rising sun god said calmly. Even in the god realm, the underworld has disappeared without a trace for hundreds of thousands of years. In the primordial era, When the three realms were in chaos, the underworld was at its peak. However, after the primordial era, the underworld quickly declined and gradually disappeared from the world's eyes. A strange light flashed through Ning Chen's eyes when he heard this. He nodded lightly. "High Priest, what are your plans for the future?" Yueshan asked. "I will combine the origins of the 5 temple masters and try my best to break through to the 5th level," Ning Chen replied. "If you want to enter the 5th level, you need to project your own laws into the great world. This is not an easy path," the rising sun god reminded him. Ning Chen's expression hardened. Projecting his own laws into the great world? Didn't that mean that the key to the 5th level was to make his own laws into the heavenly path? Could such a thing really be done? "High Priest," Yueshan said calmly, "the way you cultivate is the way of the sword. The way of the sword is different from the ways of nature like wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. The way of the sword does not exist in the heavenly path. Therefore, it will not be easy to enter the 5th level." Ning Chen frowned when he heard this. He looked at the youth in white beside him and said, By Wang Yu, you also cultivate the way of the sword. How did you enter the 5th level?" Bai Wang Yu scratched his head and said, "Actually, I did not enter the heavenly realm through the way of the sword." Ning Chen raised his middle finger and said, "Coward." "Scram," Bai Wang Yu said disdainfully. "You can try. Since ancient times, I have never seen anyone who can project the way of the sword into the great world. Sword cultivators flourish in the east of the god realm. If you want to comprehend the way of the sword, you can go there," the rising sun god said. "The east?" Ning Chen narrowed his eyes and looked toward the east of the god realm. Perhaps he really should go there and take a look. The way of the sword at the 5th level should exist. However, no one in this era has been able to do it, the rising sun god said calmly. Therefore, if you want to take this path, you must be fully prepared. "I understand." Ning Chen nodded and said, "There are no shortcuts on the path of cultivation. No matter how difficult it is, I will not give up." "You really want to go to the east?" Bai Wang Yu asked. "Why can't I?" Ning Chen asked, puzzled. "The eastern god realm is currently experiencing great chaos. If you go now, you may encounter a lot of trouble," Bai Wang Yu reminded him. "Great chaos?" The moon goddess looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "There is a rebellion in the divine court. For some reason, a divine battle general betrayed the divine court. Now the entire divine court is looking for him," Bai Wang Yu said seriously. "Who?" the moon goddess asked in surprise. "The number 1 general of the divine court, Qing Jian," Bai Wang Yu replied. "So it's him." The rising sun god's eyes narrowed as he spoke softly. Ning Chen listened to their conversation, thoughts flashing through his mind. He had more or less heard of Qing Jian, so he wasn't too unfamiliar with him. Qing Jian was ranked first among the 10 divine battle generals of the divine court. His battle prowess was shocking. Even in the entire eastern divine realm, Qing Jian was one of the strongest. Even the lord of the divine court might not be able to suppress him if he did not have the draconic qi. However, this had nothing to do with him. He was going to the east only to refine his way of the sword. Thinking of this, Ning Chen looked at the 2 people in front of him and said, "Moon goddess, sea god, the divine palace just experienced a great battle. I'm sure you have many things to attend to. I won't disturb you any longer. See you again." "You're in such a hurry? You're still injured. Won't you wait until you're healed?" the moon goddess asked in surprise. "No need. These injuries won't affect me much," Ning Chen said with a smile. The rising sun god looked at the man in front of him and said calmly, "If you run into trouble, remember to return to the divine palace first." Ning Chen nodded. He didn't refuse the lord of the divine palace's good intentions. "I will." With that, Ning Chen didn't stay any longer and left. Bai Wang Yu saw this and hurried after him. In front of the divine palace, the moon goddess sighed softly as she watched the 2 leave. He came in a hurry and left in a hurry. When would the high priest stop and rest? Don't worry. He's no longer as weak as he was when he first came to the god realm. Even if he hasn't reached the 5th level, he won't fear ordinary heaven realm experts, the rising sun god said calmly. What I'm worried about is that he'll encounter a top heaven realm expert like my brother, the moon goddess said softly. The moon goddess said softly, the eastern god realm has always been the most mysterious realm in the god realm. Powerhouses are everywhere, just like that white-robed youth beside him. Before this, we never knew that the god realm had such a top-notch powerhouse. The rising sun god was silent. The eastern god realm was indeed a mysterious realm. On the southern continent, Ningchen and Bai Wangyu were heading east toward the eastern god realm. Are you really going to break through to the 5th level with your sword Dao? On the way forward, Bai Wangyu asked again and again without any annoyance. How many times have you asked? Ningchen said unhappily. Even if you're not annoyed, I'm annoyed. Besides, why are you following me? Didn't you just come to the southern continent? Why are you going back now? I came to find you for a sword duel. Now that you're going to the eastern god realm, of course I'm going too, Bai Wangyu said matter-of-factly. Ningchen was about to say something when he suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Bai Wangyu was puzzled. After a moment, his expression changed and he hurriedly retreated. However, at this moment, a powerful aura surged around Ningchen. It was chaotic and heavy. The 4 symbols' origins that had been suppressed for a long time changed again. Around Ningchen, the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise manifested. In the middle, a qilin roared. Its terrifying power shook heaven and earth. Ningchen roared. Under the impact of the 4 symbols' origins, his blood and qi surged and cracks appeared on his skin. The shocking power spread. Bai Wangyu was directly pushed back 100 feet. The corner of his mouth was red. What the hell? Bai Wangyu looked at the scene in front of him with a shocked expression. The 4 symbols appeared at the same time. In the sky, thunder rumbled. The heavens sensed that another great calamity was about to descend. Below, Ningchen endured the intense pain. Chaotic true essence, demonic essence, and phoenix essence surged out at the same time to guide the frenzied 4 symbols' origins. Around Ningchen, the sky collapsed and the earth caved in. The thunder fell but was directly scattered. Boom! Above the 9 heavens, thousands of thunderbolts descended and continuously struck the knowing destiny state below. Around Ningchen's body, waves of powerful energy surged and blocked the lightning. Ningchen groaned in pain. The celestial slash appeared. On the sword, patterns spread out and pierced into his arm. The immortal sword that was connected to his life kept absorbing the surging power around Ningchen to help its master pass the calamity. Boom! At this moment, thousands of thunderbolts fell again, blasting away the obstruction and landing on the knowing destiny state. Get lost. Ningchen's face revealed a ferocious expression. He faced the attack with his sword. With a loud rumble, the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise, qilin, phoenix, and sky demon flew out and collided with the thunder. He came here to experience the strengths of the various sects and to refine his own sword Dao. Since there were people fighting, he couldn't miss it. 1,000 miles away, white-robed sword immortals flew over. Dozens of powerful swordsmen joined forces to attack a woman. The woman's body was filled with demon qi. There was a scar on her face that was dripping with blood. It was obvious that it was a sword wound. Too tragic. Bai Wangyu was speechless. Demon. Ningchen's eyes narrowed slightly. He hadn't seen many demon cultivators in the divine realm because the demons in the divine realm were basically all killed. Humans had the human world, gods had the divine realm, and demons were never accepted by the various realms. Animals, whether in the eyes of humans or gods, would always be the most lowly existence. Help! Ningchen looked at the people beside him and asked. There's no need. These people are enough to take down this demon. Bai Wangyu replied. What I mean is to help this demon. Ningchen's eyes flashed with a dangerous light as he sneered. Chapter 14:16. Eastern Divine World, the Border. White-robed sword immortals were slaying demons. The battle was extremely tragic. Dozens of white-robed sword immortals, their robes fluttering in the wind as their sword techniques were nimble. They worked together to kill the demoness in the sword formation. The demoness was covered in blood. Her face had some shocking sword wounds. Against the sword formation formed by 49 sword immortals, she did not have much strength to fight back. Outside the battle, Ning Chen and Bai Wangyu were watching the battle ahead, carefully observing the intricacies of the sword formation. This sword formation is extraordinary. It seems like these white-robed sword immortals have extraordinary identities, said Ning Chen. Son of Heaven's sword sect. Bai Wangyu said with a solemn expression. Oh! Ning Chen's eyes flashed with surprise when he heard that. You know the origins of these people. Bai Wangyu nodded and said, I recognize this sword formation. This formation came from the first ancestor of the Son of Heaven's sword sect. It's extremely powerful. It seems like this demoness is dead for sure. That might not be the case. As he spoke, a human sword appeared in Ning Chen's hand. Purple light swirled as he stabbed the sword into the ground. Immediately, in the distant battle, sword chi soared into the sky, disrupting the battle. In the sword formation, the 49 white-robed sword immortals were shocked as they hurriedly retreated. In the center of the sword formation, the demoness was overjoyed when she saw this. She hurriedly rushed out of the battle. Where do you think you're going? Among the 49 white-robed sword immortals, 4 of them with golden embroidery on their sleeves had dark expressions. Their figures flashed past, blocking the demoness' path. With her path blocked, despair flashed across the demoness' face. She calmed down and charged at the 4 of them. The 4 of them waved their swords at the same time. Powerful sword chi tore through the air and forced the demoness to retreat. In an instant, the white-robed sword immortals behind her rushed forward again, forming a sword formation to trap the demoness. Outside the battle, Ning Chen frowned slightly. This stupid demoness could not even escape. Are you crazy? You're not helping these sword immortals but helping that demon, said Bai Wangyu in shock. I'm helping when I see injustice, Ning Chen said matter-of-factly. Not only are these people bullying the weak, but there are so many of them besieging one. Of course, I have to help this demoness. But she's a demoness, said Bai Wangyu. So what if I'm a demon? Do demons deserve to die? What kind of logic is that? Ning Chen said calmly. Here. Bai Wang was stunned, not knowing how to refute. Demons and devils harmed people, so they had to be killed when they encountered them. Hearing the 2 words Yaoyu, Ning Chen's body shook as he said, What's your name? Yaoyu. The demoness replied. Ning Chen fell silent after hearing this. After a moment, he walked in front of the demoness and shook off everyone's attack with his sword. I'll protect your life. As he spoke, sword intent surged around Ning Chen's body. A terrifying sword pressure rapidly spread out. Outside the battle, seeing this, Bai Wangyu's expression changed slightly. Was this guy crazy? He actually wanted to kill. In the sword formation, sword intent spread out. 1 person against 49 sword immortals. Ning Chen's aura suppressed everyone and didn't fall into a disadvantage. This was an opponent they had never seen before. The 49 white-robed sword immortals' expressions changed. Their bodies kept moving as they formed a formation to face the enemy. Divine weapons clashed and clanged. In the center of the sword formation, Ning Chen held a human sword and faced the Emperor's sword sect's world cry formation. The sword light crisscrossed. It was fast, so fast that it was hard to follow. In the sword formation, the 49 white-robed sword immortals moved faster and faster, working together to kill the strong enemy. However, in a battle of speed, knowing destiny didn't fear anyone. 1 person against 10,000. Behind Ning Chen, Yao Yu's face was full of shock. She didn't expect the person in front of her to have such amazing ability. This Emperor's sword formation could even kill a divine demon-level expert. The man in front of her was alone, but he actually had the upper hand. Outside the battle, Bai Wangyu's expression changed again and again. Hesitation flashed in his heart. To help or not to help? Reason told him that he couldn't help. The Emperor's sword sect was one of the top sects in the Eastern Divine Realm. Even the Divine Court had to give them some face. It was unwise to provoke such a huge figure. Damn it. Bai Wangyu made up his mind. He raised his sword and entered the battle in an instant. Let reason go to hell. In the center of the sword formation, Ning Chen looked at the white-robed youth in front of him. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly. This guy was really interesting. Bai Wangyu entered the battle. The two peerless swordsmen worked together. The Emperor's sword formation immediately showed signs of defeat. The white-robed sword immortals were sent flying, their blood splattering on the divine ground. Not long after, there were only a few white-robed sword immortals who could still stand. Bai Wangyu looked at the sword immortals who were rolling and struggling on the ground. He said with disdain, "The Emperor's sword sect is only Isuzo." "That's not what you said just now." Ning Chen smiled and exposed him. "Get lost. I helped you and you didn't say thank you. You even exposed me," Bai Wangyu said unhappily. Ning Chen smiled and said, "Thank you. Let's go. If the experts of the Emperor's sword sect come later, it will be troublesome. Do you think I'm afraid of trouble?" Bai Wangyu's words were unyielding, but his feet quickly walked forward. Ning Chen smiled and stepped forward to catch up with him. Behind him, Yao Yu also quickly followed. Her eyes were filled with gratitude. Hundreds of miles away, Yao Yu looked at the white-haired man in front of her. She knelt down and said, "Thank you, benefactor." "No need. It's just a small matter." Ning Chen helped the female demon up and said, "Quickly go home. Don't be caught by this kind of person again." Hearing this, Yao Yu's eyes overflowed with tears. She said, "My family has been killed. I have no home now." Hearing this, Ning Chen was stunned. He looked at the white-robed youth beside him. "Don't look at me," Bai Wangyu said helplessly. "I didn't kill her family. You saw it too. The Eastern Divine Realm is in chaos now. Not to mention demons, even humans would die." Ning Chen frowned. The Divine Realm was really more chaotic than the mortal realm. Every martial artist in the mortal realm wanted to ascend to become a deity or a god. They didn't know that compared to the mortal realm, the Divine Realm was no different. "Benefactor, can Yao Yu follow you?" Yao Yu looked at the white-haired man in front of her and knelt down again. "Get up first." Ning Chen helped the female demon up. His head hurt. He seemed to have found trouble for himself. At the side, Bai Wangyu looked at them with schadenfreude. He didn't mind if things got out of hand. Anyway, they had already offended the sword faction. Not to mention one female demon, even if they brought 10, it wouldn't make a difference. Suddenly, Ning Chen was stunned. His right hand that was supporting the female demon immediately grabbed her arm. Seeing this, Bai Wangyu was shocked. This guy couldn't be thinking about sex, right? The female demon's body trembled subconsciously. She wanted to break free, but she found that she couldn't. "Don't move," Ning Chen said softly. The chaotic true essence in his body entered the female demon's body, searching for the strange aura that he felt just now. There was something strange in this female demon's body. Bai Wangyu also felt that something was wrong. He looked at the two of them with a serious expression. "What's wrong?" Bai Wangyu asked. "There's a seal in her body," Ning Chen said seriously. "Seal?" When Bai Wangyu heard this, he revealed a shocked expression. Who would waste so much effort to seal such a tiny demoness? However, after searching for a long time, Ning Chen couldn't find the exact location of the seal. He could only vaguely feel the power of the seal. Strange. Ning Chen looked at the female demon in front of him, but he couldn't find anything strange. At the same time, in the divine world, in the divine court, clouds swirled and celestial music was faintly discernible. Chapter 14:17. At the banquet, the Emperor's sword owner felt the Emperor's sword formation being broken. He reached out and pressed on the ancient sword in front of him. The Lord of the Divine Court felt it. He looked at the young Emperor's sword owner and asked, "What's wrong?" Something happened. The Emperor's sword owner's eyes flashed. He flicked the hand holding the sword. Suddenly, an extremely sharp sword light broke through the air and swept towards the lower world. The shocking sword, separated by endless time and space, quickly swept towards the world below. In the wilderness, Ning Chen and Bai Wangyu were about to move forward. Suddenly, they were shocked. Above them, a huge space crack appeared out of nowhere. In the space crack, a shocking sword chi cut through time and space and swept towards them. Bai Wangyu saw this and his expression changed. This was the emperor's sword qi. Beside Bai Wangyu, Ningchen also felt the terror of the sword qi. He focused all his attention and manifested the celestial slash. The celestial sword appeared again. The sword broke through the air and met the attack. Boom! The emperor's sword and the celestial slash collided. Suddenly, the heavens shook and the earth shook. Thousands of miles away, hundreds of mountains collapsed. Rubble flew everywhere. It was shocking. Below the collision, under Ning Chen's feet, the earth rumbled and shook. Cracks spread and crisscrossed. It was a shocking move. Blood flowed from the corner of Ning Chen's mouth. In just one exchange, he was at a disadvantage. Let's go. On the side, Bai Wangyu's expression turned serious. He took the female demon and the injured knowing destiny and quickly left. Thousands of miles away, the sword light swept over. The three stopped. Bai Wangyu looked at the man beside him and asked, "How are your injuries?" "It's fine." Around Ning Chen's body, chaotic true essence surged and healed his injuries. Not long after, Ning Chen opened his eyes. There was a rare excitement in the depths of his eyes. After coming to the divine realm, he finally met a true sword expert. "Do you know who that sword qi came from?" Ning Chen looked at the young man beside him and asked. "The emperor's sword owner." Bai Wangyu said with a serious expression, "The first sword expert in the Eastern Divine Realm." Hearing this, Ning Chen's eyes flashed. He said, "He is the sect master of the emperor's sword sect?" "Yes." Bai Wangyu nodded and said, "This person's cultivation in the sword is unfathomable. It is very likely that he will become the first person in tens of thousands of years to reflect the sword Dao into the heavenly Dao." "In that case, he hasn't stepped into the fifth realm yet?" Ning Chen said in surprise. "Not yet. However, this does not mean that this person is not strong. On the contrary, the Son of Heaven's Sword Master has killed more than one fifth-level cultivator. Moreover, the Son of Heaven's Sword sect does not lack fifth-level cultivators. For the Son of Heaven's Sword Master to be able to intimidate these people, it can be seen how terrifying his strength is." Ning Chen nodded. He had personally experienced the strength of this person with that sword strike just now. At the very least, this Son of Heaven Sword Master would not lose to top experts like Divine Lord Qilin and Bodhisattva Ci Hang. In the Divine Court, the Sword Master of the Son of Heaven also had a strange expression when he sensed that his sword had not killed the enemy. An unfamiliar expert of the way of the sword had arrived from the Eastern God realm. Thinking of this, the Sword Master of the Son of Heaven looked at the Lord of the Divine Court and said, "I have other matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first." After saying that, the Son of Heaven sword owner stood up and transformed into a beam of sword light, heading down to the lower realm. On the main seat, the Lord of the Divine Court frowned slightly but did not say anything. During the banquet, a divine battle general could not stand the Son of Heaven sword owner's unscrupulous behavior. He stood up and said in a deep voice, "Divine Lord, this Son of Heaven sword owner really doesn't know the rules." On the main seat, the Lord of the Divine Court raised his hand and stopped the former from continuing. He said with a calm expression, "The Son of Heaven sword owner may have urgent matters to attend to. Don't worry about it." The divine battle general who had spoken earlier clenched his fists and had no choice but to sit down again. Because of the Son of Heaven sword owner's sudden departure, the atmosphere of the banquet became heavy for a moment. The Lord of the Divine Court looked at the legendary figures of the major sects below and smiled. "Everyone, there's no need to be reserved. Come, let me propose a toast to everyone. Divine Lord, you're too polite." Below, the prominent figures of the various sects who had been famous for a long time did not dare to be arrogant. They all stood up and raised their cups. "Divine Lord." At this moment, below, a divine general walked over quickly. He half knelt and saluted. The traitorous divine general Qin Jian's whereabouts had been found. On the main seat, the Lord of the Divine Court's expression immediately froze. He said in a deep voice, "Where?" "Sichuan." The divine general replied respectfully. At the banquet, the 9 divine battle generals looked at each other when they heard this. There was a serious look in their eyes. "Divine Lord, I am willing to go to Sichuan and bring Qing Jian back." A young divine general who looked to be only 12 or 13 years old stood up and saluted respectfully. "Tianqi, are you confident?" The lord of the divine court looked at the young man in front of him and said with a serious expression, "You should know what Qing Jian is capable of." Below, Qing Jian's three-pointed, double-edged sword appeared in his hand, and he directly faced the attack. The two strongest divine battle generals fought. The flaming spear and the three-pointed, double-edged sword danced with great momentum, but they were also extremely sharp. The two figures moved between the mountains and rivers, and the divine weapons clashed, causing the sky to collapse and the earth to sink. The shocking scene shocked everyone. The fight between the gods attracted countless people to watch. At the same time, Ning Chen and the others, who had come to the Eastern Divine World, also felt the shocking battle in the distance and stopped. "They're fighting again." Bai Wangyu looked at the shocking battle in the distance and said, "Divine Battle General Qing Jian?" Ning Chen asked with a strange expression. "Yes." Bai Wangyu nodded and said, "The number 1 divine battle general of the divine court has unfathomable strength, and the one fighting with him is the number 2 divine battle general, Tianqi, whose cultivation is also at the 5th realm. Although his strength is not as strong as Qing Jian's, the difference is not too great. Will the divine court send the next person to capture this divine battle general?" Ning Chen looked at the battle in the distance, and his eyes narrowed slightly. Sometimes, the difference between the number 1 and the number 2 was like heaven and earth. The number 1 was always the number 1, and it was always difficult to surpass. "No," Bai Wangyu said seriously. "There must be reinforcements, but they haven't made a move yet." In the distance, in the sky above the battle, the 36 celestial spirits stood quietly in the auspicious clouds, looking at the battle below with serious expressions. Divine General Qing Jian's fame shook the entire divine court. It was said that unless the other 9 divine battle generals all made a move, no one could take down this divine general. They didn't know whether the rumor was true or false, but it seemed that divine General Tianqi was indeed fighting very hard. In the battle, Tianqi was fighting against Qing Jian. After more than 10 rounds, Tianqi's body was already stained red. The three-pointed, double-edged sword weighed more than 1,000 pounds, but divine General Qing Jian lifted it as if it were nothing. Every move collided, and the remaining power roared wildly. The battle was unfavorable. Tianqi let out a deep roar, and the brilliance around him rose. In the face of a strong enemy, Tianqi showed his strongest divine power. Behind him, 2 heads and 4 arms grew out, and the shocking Dharma form was abnormally terrifying. 3 heads and 6 arms, the top 3 divine powers of the Eastern Divine World, reappeared in the world today. Tianqi's 6 arms each held a divine weapon, either a spear, a silk, or a Vajra divine ring. As he waved them, the wind and clouds changed color. In front of him, divine General Qing Jian's expression didn't change. He stepped forward with a divine weapon in hand. The battle started again, and the rumbling sound echoed throughout Sichuan. Divine General Qing Jian faced Tianqi, who had used a divine power, and waved the three-pointed, double-edged sword in his hand. His attacks were like a storm, and he wasn't affected at all. Boom! The 3 divine weapons in Tianqi's hand collided with the three-pointed, double-edged sword at the same time. The terrifying impact spread out and shook the battle. At this moment, a huge figure rose from the collapsed mountain below, holding 2 huge hammers and smashing down again. Qing Jian didn't have time to react to the sudden attack. The hammers fell and smashed the top divine general of the divine court down. With a boom, a huge deep pit appeared on the ground below. Waves of dust billowed and blocked one's vision. "You're still not dead this time," Divine General Juling said angrily in the void. "Don't be careless." In front of him, Tianqi said in a deep voice. He looked down, and his expression was still abnormally solemn. "How intense!" In the distance, Ning Chen couldn't help but exclaim as he watched this astonishing battle. It seemed that this trip to the Eastern Divine World was the right one. He switched from defense to offense and began to attack madly. With a rumble, the three-pointed, double-edged saber in Qing Jian's hand slashed down, directly smashing Divine General Tianqi down. Amidst the tumbling waves of dust, Divine General Tianqi soared into the sky again. He displayed the power of his 3 heads and 6 arms and fought against the former number 1 Divine General of the Divine Court with all his strength. Seeing that it was difficult for Divine General Tianqi to gain the upper hand, the 36 heavenly stars in the sky did not dare to hesitate and immediately joined the battle. The 36 celestial stars attacked, and strange light rose in the void. 36 of them formed a formation, suppressing Divine General Qing Jian's power. Divine General Qing Chang snorted coldly. He let go of the three-pointed, double-edged saber in his hands. He flipped his palms, and a terrifying power burst out, turning into raging waves. Ugh! The 36 celestial stars grunted at the same time. Even if they worked together, it was difficult to trap the number 1 Divine General of the Divine Court. On the ground, the severely injured Divine General Zhuling staggered to his feet again and flew toward the sky. In the void, Divine General Qing Chang's face was cold. He raised his hand and poured in yuan. Vast blue divine light spread, and then he slapped down with an earth-shattering force. With a rumble, Divine General Zhuling, who had not yet joined the battle, slapped down again and crashed into the ground. In the Divine Court, the Lord of the Divine Court, sitting high on the dragon throne, looked at the divine realm in front of him and frowned. The divine realm reflected the battle in the lower world. 2 divine battle generals and the 36 celestial stars attacked together, but they were no match for the traitorous Qing Jian. Divine Lord, Divine General Tianqi and Divine General Zhuling seemed to be at a disadvantage. During the banquet, an ancient divine demon from a large sect spoke calmly. On the dragon throne, the Lord of the Divine Court collected himself and smiled. No problem. Purple Lightning Divine General, go and help them. During the banquet, a woman in purple armor stood up. Her figure turned into purple lightning and disappeared instantly. The 3rd Divine General made his move. In the sky, a purple lightning bolt tore through the air at extreme speed. The Purple Lightning Divine General, a powerful Divine General known for his speed, rushed toward the battle. In the west of the battle, above the wilderness, Ning Chen looked at the battle in the distance. Suddenly, he looked at the sky with a strange expression. Another one had come. Purple Lightning Divine General. Beside him, Bai Wangyu spoke with a solemn expression. The Divine General known for his speed? Ning Chen asked. That's right. Bai Wangyu nodded and said, this Divine General is not only extremely fast, but his explosive attack is also equally shocking. With this person holding him back, Qing Jian will be in a tough battle this time. That may not be the case. Ning Chen looked away and continued to watch the battle. Speed is important in battle, but it's not like there's no way to deal with it. In terms of understanding of speed, he believed that he would not lose to anyone. However, there was no perfect battle strategy in the world. Everyone had extreme speed. In the void in the distance, the 36 celestial spirits were all injured by Qing Jian's shocking attack. The celestial spirit array also fluctuated violently. In the battle, Tianqi Divine General relied on his 3 heads and 6 arms to hold on and barely block Qing Jian's storm-like attacks. Below, the Divine General of Zhuling, who was blasted down again and again, was furious. He once again soared into the sky and joined the battle. Qing Jian snorted coldly and kicked the 3-pointed double-edged sword in front of him. He gathered his energy and gathered it from all directions, splitting the yin and yang of heaven and earth. 8-9 mysterious heavens, yin and yang flood splitting. This shocking move stirred up the wind and clouds. In the battle, Tianqi Divine General's expression changed slightly when he saw this. With a deep roar, flames rose around his body and turned into a protective barrier in front of him. Tianqi, you are still too young after all. A cold smile appeared on Qing Jian's face. He turned his palm and slapped directly at the Divine General of Zhuling below. The earth-shattering move stirred up the wind and clouds. Below, the Divine General of Zhuling's expression changed drastically. The feeling of death was so clear. At the critical moment, In the distance, purple lightning rushed past. At the most dangerous moment, it carried the divine general of Juling away from the shocking palm. Boom! Below, the palm energy landed on the ground. Instantly, the sky collapsed and the earth caved in. The terrifying scene shocked everyone. 8-9 Mysterious Heaven Art. In the distance, Ningchen looked at the cultivation method used by Qing Jian, and his eyes narrowed slightly. In the mortal world, he had also seen this cultivation method. Back then, Jun Wenin of the Demon Palace had cultivated this method. It turned out that this powerful cultivation method came from the God realm. Purple lightning, I didn't expect you to come too. In the battle in the distance, Qing Jian looked back at the woman in purple and said calmly, "You betrayed the divine court. Qing Jian, you have disappointed me." The purple lightning divine general looked at the man in front of him. Anger flashed in his eyes. Qing Jian sighed softly and didn't say much. His three-pointed, double-edged sword appeared in his hand again. He glanced at the three divine generals and said, "No need to say more. Come at me together." The purple lightning divine general's expression was cold. He stepped lightly and disappeared instantly. Swoosh! In an instant, the purple lightning divine general swept in front of Qing Jian. A 3-foot-long cold blade appeared in his hand. It was neither a sword nor a saber. It was more like a sharp weapon forged for killing. The blood blade was one of the top 10 divine weapons in the Eastern God realm. It was made for killing and was extremely sharp. Qing Jian, who was already prepared, took half a step back and avoided the blood blade. He waved the three-pointed, double-edged sword in his hand and made a strong counterattack. Boom! Purple lightning's figure flashed and avoided the attack. In front of him, a green light broke through the sky and flattened a mountain. In the battle between divine weapons, an inch longer was an inch stronger and an inch shorter was an inch more dangerous. In the battle, the two powerful divine generals made full use of their advantages. One's attack was powerful and the other's movement was as fast as lightning. Strength and speed competed and restrained each other. No one dared to be careless. At the moment when the two were in a stalemate, the two divine generals, Tianqi and Juling, also rushed into the battle and joined forces to fight the first divine general of the divine court. The rumbling shook continuously. Qing Jian, who was suppressed by the heavenly dipper formation, could only use 70% of his strength. The blood blade slashed across Qing Jian's left arm and blood splattered. It was the first time since the battle that his arm was dyed red. The battle tilted. After purple lightning joined the battle, the three divine generals finally gained the upper hand. Outside the battle, Ningchen looked at the formation in front of him and narrowed his eyes. The battle strategy was wrong. The key was not the three divine generals joining forces. However, could Qing Jian, who was in the battle, realize this? The divine court does have some tricks. It seems that Qing Jian is going to lose, Bai Wangyu said from the side. You too, can you hand over the demoness behind you? At this moment, a calm voice sounded in the void and entered their ears. When Ning Chen and Bai Wangran heard this, their bodies trembled and they suddenly looked at the sky. But at this moment, sword currents surged in the void, and amazing sword pressure spread in all directions. After a short while, an extremely young figure walked out from the stream of swords. He held an ancient sword in his hand, and his strength was so strong that it was shocking. The owner of the Emperor Sword, a legendary swordsman of the Eastern Divine Realm, had come in person. Not good. Bai Wangran saw the person and his expression changed. On the side, Ning Chen felt the sword pressure of the young man in the void, and his face became serious. Chapter 1419. In the Eastern Divine World, west of Sichuan, the Son of Heaven sword owner arrived in person. The legendary swordsman of the Eastern Divine World. Even though he hadn't reached the 5th level, his strength wasn't inferior to the overlords of the Divine World. Hand over the female demon behind you, and I'll let you go. The Son of Heaven sword owner descended from the sky, holding the Son of Heaven sword. The sword hadn't been unsheathed, but the sword pressure had already caused the surrounding void to distort violently. Yao Yu, back off. Ningchen looked at the Son of Heaven sword owner who was walking towards him. Benefactor, be careful. Yao Yu also felt the strength of the Son of Heaven sword owner, and reminded him with a worried expression. Then he leaped out of the battle. "Looks like you don't plan to hand her over," the Son of Heaven sword owner said calmly. "Since we've saved her, we naturally won't hand her over," Ningchen said calmly. "What about you?" The Son of Heaven sword owner looked at the white-robed youth beside him and asked. Bai Wangyu smiled bitterly and said helplessly, "He has the final say." "That's good too." As he spoke, the Son of Heaven sword owner unsheathed his sword. In an instant, above the 9 heavens, the wind and clouds stirred, and the sky quickly darkened. The battle was about to begin, and the surrounding air pressure immediately became heavy. In an instant, the Son of Heaven sword owner moved, and a dragon's roar shook the sky. Around the Son of Heaven sword owner, a 5-clawed golden dragon coiled, and the image of the Son of Heaven shook people's hearts. On the Son of Heaven sword, a dazzling golden light shone, and a sword slashed open the void for thousands of miles. In front, Ning Chen's expression turned serious. In the turbulent blood qi, the celestial slash appeared, and the runes on the sword spread, piercing into his arm. Connected by blood, the celestial slash reappeared, and its shocking power filled the air. The ancient celestial sword's sword power shook the world. With a swing of the sword light broke through the sky. Above the vast wilderness, 2 sword qi rushed towards each other, and in an instant, they collided. In the next moment, a terrifying tremor sounded. With the 2 as the center, the entire wilderness began to collapse, and it spread endlessly, reaching thousands of miles away. In the center of the battle, 2 golden and silver auras swept out. The terrifying aura, it made people go crazy. As the 2 peerless swordsmen clashed, the sky collapsed and the earth fell. Outside the battlefield, Bai Wangyu was impacted by the shock waves of the great battle. He took half a step back. When he saw Yao Yu not far away, his expression turned serious. His figure flashed past and blocked in front of him. A sword strike scattered the surging shockwaves. Yao Yu recovered from her shock, but her body was still trembling. Demonic flames burning the plains. Sword light shot out, and demonic flames burned the world. Layers of attacks accumulated, and the flying swan incantation displayed its shocking might. In the next moment, the 2 forces collided in the void. An extremely strong shock wave spread out, forcing the 2 back. In terms of cultivation body strength, they were evenly matched. No one gained the upper hand. Outside the battlefield, Bai Wangyu's expression turned increasingly grave. In terms of strength, Ning Chen was actually not inferior to the Son of Heaven Swordhead. Perhaps this battle was not as one-sided as Bai Wangyu had imagined. In the void, after a round of attack and defense, the 2 figures shot out again. Sword lights intersected, and killing intent filled the air. Ning Chen's aura constantly changed. He skillfully switched between the 3 cultivation bodies, bringing out their advantages to the maximum. Not bad. The opponent in front of him was amazing. The Son of Heaven Swordhead's eyes focused for the first time. He pointed his finger at his sword, and rays of golden dragon qi shot out. Dragon roars filled the sky, and sword intent filled the sky. Ning Chen swung his sword to block the attack. He took half a step back, and the corner of his mouth turned red. Gaining the advantage in one move, the Son of Heaven Swordhead's figure shot out, and the Son of Heaven sword slashed out with shocking might. The sword light approached, and Ning Chen's figure flashed, arriving behind the Son of Heaven Swordhead. The sword aura turned, and the 3,000 snow waves pressed down on the former. The sword aura's attribute changed without any warning. The entire world froze, and everything was white. The Son of Heaven Swordhead's expression turned serious. He turned his head back and blocked the attack with his sword. With a boom, the Son of Heaven sword scattered the snowflakes that broke through the air. At this moment, a silver sword light arrived silently, and it was abnormally powerful. The Son of Heaven Swordhead's expression turned serious, and he immediately retreated. However, he was already one step too late. The silver sword light brushed past him. The Son of Heaven Swordhead's divine sense shook, and he suddenly staggered. The self-cutting Dao sword that specialized in cutting divine sense and Dao realm displayed its might. the son of Heaven Sword Head, who did not have time to react, was injured for the first time. Ha! Feeling the intense pain, the son of Heaven Sword Head shouted. Golden light rose around him, suppressing the fluctuations of his divine sense. At this moment, Ning Chen's figure had already arrived in front of him. His sword was like thunder. It was fast, and it was even faster. Having lost the initiative, the son of Heaven Sword Head retreated step by step, falling into a disadvantage. In a battle between top swordsmen, every move could be the key to changing the situation. The two exchanged more than 100 moves, and the situation changed again and again. The two people outside the battle were extremely nervous. This guy actually hid so much of his strength. Bai Wangyu's face showed anger. However, he still did not relax too much. He knew that the son of Heaven Sword Head's strength was definitely not limited to this. As expected, before he finished thinking in the battle, the eyes of the son of Heaven Sword Head, who was retreating step by step, flashed with a golden brilliance. He activated his divine might and caught the trajectory of the former sword. Zhu Xian closed in, and the son of Heaven Sword Head blocked the sword with his fingers. The son of Heaven Sword in his hands slashed down, forcefully counterattacking. In the instant of danger, Ning Chen turned his body, narrowly avoiding the killing move. However, after being suppressed in one move, the situation of the battle changed again. The son of Heaven Sword Head's sword slashed down, and his attacks were endless. Changing hands of the world. His sword was suppressed. The sword in Ning Chen's hands spun rapidly, slashing towards the son of Heaven Sword Head's arm. Clang! The two divine weapons collided. Dragon Chi and Cold Chi clashed, and it was hard to tell who would win. Counterattacking with moves, the situation of the battle that was about to be reversed was leveled again. The two people's expressions were abnormally focused. In close combat, their sword fingers condensed, and the tip of their fingers was deadly. Peng peng, they exchanged moves, and danger surrounded them. The two people stood at the peak of the sword. Facing an opponent of the same level, how could they bow down? With a loud boom, after countless moves, the two people's sword fingers crossed, imprinting on each other's body. Blood splattered, and the battle separated. 100 steps away, the two people steadied themselves. The people who looked at each other had sword intent surging around them. Dragon Chi coiled around them, and Cold Chi pervaded the air. Strong, shockingly strong. Facing the strongest opponent of their lives, the two people continuously raised their battle intent, and their bodies shone with brilliance. Chapter 1420. This was a shocking battle. The son of Heaven Sword Sovereign activated his divine might. His eyes shone with a golden light, and he could see through everything. Cold air fluctuated around Ning Chen's body, and the phoenix flames rose again. An instant later, his figure disappeared again. Fast, even faster. Ning Chen urged the phoenix to fly at top speed. His speed kept increasing as he tried to break through his opponent's insight ability. The son of Heaven Sword Sovereign narrowed his eyes. In the golden world, Ning Chen's speed seemed to slow down. His afterimages could be faintly seen. In an instant, the son of Heaven Sword owner moved and appeared in front of an afterimage, slashing down with his sword. The golden dragon roared, and the sword chi tore through the air, destroying the afterimage. The son of Heaven Sword Head frowned and his heart sank. Not good. At this moment, a sword light suddenly appeared beside the sword master of Heaven's son of Heaven. It was much faster than before. In the instant of danger, the son of Heaven Sword owner barely managed to grasp the trajectory of the sword and immediately retreated. With a chila sound, the son of Heaven Sword owner's arm was dyed red once more. At the most dangerous moment, he avoided his vitals. In front of him, Ning Chen's figure paused. He waved the immortal sword in his hand and attacked again. A golden light flashed in the eyes of the son of Heaven Sword owner as he blocked the attack with his sword. With a loud bang, the two swords collided once again. Ning Chen, who barely gained the upper hand in terms of speed, was still unable to completely break through the former's divine might. It was fast, but not fast enough. Even though it was faster than the speed of heaven and earth, it was still difficult to completely escape the detection of the divine might. Ning Chen's figure flickered, and as soon as he appeared, he vanished. The essences of the four quadrants around him surged as he continued to accelerate the speed of the phoenix. Fast, even faster. Ning Chen gave up on defense and focused all his strength on increasing his speed. Gradually, the void began to distort. At extreme speeds, space-time actually slowed down. Fast, he could go even faster. Ning Chen crazily burned the phoenix essence in his body. His speed finally reached a terrifying level. Gradually, the surrounding space seemed to have stopped flowing. Seizing the opportunity, Ning Chen leaped forward and waved his sword, mercilessly attacking. Just as he was about to succeed, a divine light tore through the air from afar. Without any warning, it shattered the frozen space with a bang. As the divine light hit his body, blood spurted out from Ning Chen's mouth as he staggered. The sudden change forcefully blasted Ning Chen out of a crazy state, and the balance of the four symbols' origins around him was instantly broken. After time resumed, the sword light from the sword master of the Emperor of Heaven's sword also fell. The powerful aura slashed towards the knowing destiny state cultivators. Ning Chen suppressed his injuries and barely managed to block the attack with his sword. With a loud boom, Ning Chen's body fell from the sky and smashed into the ground. Outside the battlefield, Bai Wanyu recovered from his shock, not understanding what had just happened. Tens of thousands of miles away, in the battle between the divine generals of the divine court, a third eye had appeared between Qing Jian's eyebrows. Dazzling divine light pierced through the sky with shocking power. Purple Lightning's figure flashed past, narrowly avoiding the divine light. The divine light brushed past him and flew into the distance. No one had expected that the battle of the divine court would affect another battle. At the critical moment, Ning Chen was blasted out of the still time and space by the divine light. The situation of the battle was completely reversed. In the void, the son of Heaven's sword owner stood quietly. Although he didn't see clearly what had happened, his instincts as a swordsman told him that he was about to lose. The instant danger of defeat completely stimulated the pride in the sword sovereign's heart. The son of Heaven's sword's owner let out a deep shout, and golden waves surged around him. In an instant, the entire battlefield was filled with terrifying sword pressure, heavy and oppressive. In the distance, above the West River, the Divine Court's Divine Court battle divine generals also felt this terrifying pressure. They separated from the battlefield and looked toward the west. This sword pressure was the son of Heaven's sword's owner? It was unbelievable that someone in the east border could force the son of Heaven's sword's owner to such an extent. In the battlefield, the besieged Qing Jian's third eye looked toward the west, and his expression froze. Just now, he seemed to have inadvertently helped the son of Heaven's sword's owner. In other words, the person who had forced the son of Heaven's sword's owner into a desperate situation was probably in danger. Thinking of this, Qing Jian stepped forward and rushed toward the west. Purple Lightning, stop him! Seeing this, Divine General Tianqi immediately shouted. The Purple Lightning Divine General came back to his senses. His figure flashed, wanting to stop Qing Jian's footsteps. Get out of the way! The god's eye between Qing Jian's eyebrows lit up with dazzling divine light again. The Purple Lightning Divine General was shocked and immediately dodged. In an instant, Qing Jian's figure flashed past and moved forward. Around the battlefield, the 36 celestial spirits used their divine power to slow down the former's footsteps. However, without the restraint of the three divine battle generals, the celestial spirits' formation could no longer restrict Qing Jian's footsteps. The three-pointed, double-edged sword swung past, and the 36 celestial spirits all vomited blood. In the west, the battle between the swordsmen became more and more tragic. After being accidentally blasted out of the stagnant time and space by Qing Jian's attack, the aura of the four origins around Ning Chen surged violently and could no longer be balanced. Ning Chen had no choice but to use his peerless foundation to forcefully suppress the four origins and fight the son of Heaven's sword's owner again. In the void, the son of Heaven's sword's owner, who had experienced the crisis of defeat, completely erupted and no longer held back. The battle technique that he wanted to use when he proved his swordsmanship appeared for the first time. 9 giant dragons appeared around the son of Heaven's sword's owner, and the number of Extreme 9 increased by 1. the Son of Heaven sword's owner displayed the strongest sword power in the world. Every sword had a giant golden dragon roaring out. 9 dragons appeared at the same time, and he was invincible in the world. In the battle, Ning Chen's body was restrained, and his combat power dropped sharply. Facing the Son of Heaven sword's owner who had unleashed his full power, he immediately fell into a disadvantage. Unwilling to lose just like that, Ning Chen's celestial slaying sword appeared in his left hand. Yin and Yang aura rushed into the sky, forming a sword formation to deal with the enemy in front of him. On the ground, a Tai Chi formation appeared and spun rapidly. Yin and Yang aura flowed endlessly, supporting the power of the 2 swords. You have lost without mercy. In the void, the Son of Heaven sword's owner revealed a furious expression. Giant golden dragons rushed down around him, constantly attacking the limits of the Yin and Yang formation. Below, blood flowed out from the corner of Ning Chen's mouth. He gradually found it difficult to hold on. Ultimate technique of the world, boundary of life and death. His defeat was obvious, but Ning Chen's battle intent did not decrease. His 2 swords crossed, and he finally counterattacked. Within the Yin and Yang grand formation, streaks of sword light rose, crisscrossing endlessly. Nirvana! With the support of the Yin and Yang formation, Ning Chen's celestial slaying sword condensed endless sword power. With 1 sword, Nirvana appeared. In the next moment, thousands of sword streams rushed into the sky. Wherever the sword streams passed, the void collapsed. In the void, the Son of Heaven sword's owner snorted coldly. The Son of Heaven divine sword also condensed the power of 9 dragons. With absolute sword power, 1 sword destroyed thousands of sword streams. The rumbling sound was endless. A terrifying vibration sounded, and the shocking power engulfed the entire world. Ugh! In the battle, a muffled groan sounded. Ning Chen's celestial slaying sword stabbed into the ground, forcibly stopping his retreat. Sword technique, Tai. The Tai sword returned to its original state. The moment Ning Chen's vital energy had not recovered, in the constantly shaking heaven and earth, he turned around and attacked again with a shocking sword. In the void, the Son of Heaven sword's owner's expression turned serious. He waved his Son of Heaven sword, and 9 giant golden dragons rushed down one after another. The Tai sword was limitless. The sword light broke through the giant golden dragons one after another. The terrifying sword power had never been seen before. However, due to the injury and the restriction of the origin of the 4 divisions, the Tai sword could not be fully used. In the end, there was a flaw in the Tai sword. The majestic sword power quickly weakened after cutting through the giant golden dragons one after another. Finally, the 8 dragons collapsed. When the sword light cut through the last and strongest giant dragon, the sword power dissipated. In the void, the giant golden dragons swallowed the sword light and rushed down quickly. My life is not up to the heavens. On the ground, Ning Chen combined the 2 swords in his hands. With a deep roar, the sword power rose again. Heaven and earth together, life and death go against fate. The heaven and earth opened, and the power of the heavenly book reappeared. Ning Chen's 2 swords broke through the void, turning into 2 rainbows that rushed into the sky. In the void, the 2 rainbows shook the golden dragon. After being attacked again and again, the giant golden dragon collapsed. A sword rainbow rushed into the sky and slashed at the Son of Heaven sword's owner. In the void, the Son of Heaven sword's owner raised his hand and blocked the sword rainbow. The god-slaying sword, at the end of its flight, fell from the sky and stabbed into the ground. The outcome of the battle of swords had been decided, and there was no room for negotiation. The Son of Heaven sword's owner descended from the sky. He looked at the former and said calmly, "For a strong person like you, I will not say hypocritical words like sparing your life." The Son of Heaven's sword swung, and the sword with earth-shattering power mercilessly slashed at the exhausted knowing destiny state in front of him. As the sword power approached him, Ning Chen endured his injuries and straightened his body. He refused to give in. Even if he was doomed to lose, he would not give in. No one could take his life. Pushing himself to the limit, Ning Chen let out a furious roar of defiance and once again forcefully fused his three bodies. Instantly, human, god, and demon, three completely different types of power violently clashed, causing a bloody mist to burst out. Again, Ning Chen held the sword and shouted angrily. Chapter 1421. In the Eastern Divine Realm, during the sword sparring session between swordsman Ning Chen, who had been accidentally blasted out of space and time, had reached his limit. On the other hand, the Son of Heaven's sword master's momentary crisis of defeat had completely stimulated the pride in his heart. The ultimate move he had left behind when he was proving his swordsmanship appeared for the first time. 9 dragons coiled around him, and his might was world-shaking. With the crisis looming over him, Ning Chen forcefully gathered the strength of his 3 bodies. The completely different forces madly attacked. In the battle, the Son of Heaven's sword master's expression turned serious when he saw this. He took a step forward and the 9 dragons appeared again. The roaring dragon might shock the world. In the Son of Heaven's sword owner's hand, the Son of Heaven's sword manifested a shocking power and slashed towards the opponent in front of him. Amidst the surging blood chi, Ning Chen swung his sword and blocked the Emperor's sword might. Splattering blood dyed his plain clothes red. Ning Chen was heavily injured, but he refused to retreat even half a step. His left hand grasped the air, and the immortal execution sword that had fallen to the ground far away flew back to him. The celestial slaying sword was slashed out and heaven and earth trembled. The Son of Heaven's sword owner blocked the sword might with his fingers. The 9 dragons swallowed the heavens and crazily attacked the former's protective sword chi. Ning Chen stepped forward. His 2 swords were as heavy as a mountain, forcefully pushing the 9 dragons and Son of Heaven's sword owner towards the mountain peak ahead. In the next moment, there was a loud bang. Between heaven and earth, there was a huge tremor. One mountain after another was directly smashed by the 2 of them. Mountain rocks collapsed and fell like rain. With the protection of the dragon chi, the Son of Heaven's sword master raised his divine energy again. He turned his finger into a palm and struck toward the former. Ning Chen did not dodge the heavy palm strike. Instead, he punched with the hand holding the sword. The 2 of them did not hold back in the slightest. Their powers corroded each other. Blood sprayed out, dyeing the mountain red. It was unknown whose blood it was, but the bitter battle became increasingly intense. Sword chi crisscrossed, and every move was a killing move. Although knowing destiny was at a disadvantage against the sword master of the Son of Heaven with his incomplete cultivation, his unyielding fighting spirit was still dazzling. Outside the battlefield, Bai Wangyu protected Yao Yu as he looked at the grand array in front of him with an abnormally heavy expression. This lunatic, to what extent was he going to fight? Young master, please help our benefactor. Behind him, Yu Yao continued to plead. He didn't ask me to attack. Bai Wangyu said solemnly. This was a fair battle. Ning Chen didn't ask him to fight, so he couldn't interfere without permission. Swordsmen also had their pride, and this pride was even greater than their lives. Judgment of the King of Hell, doomsday heavenly punishment. In the battle, demonic might shook the sky and sword chi covered the sun. Ning Chen's demonic chi surged out and a huge black demonic sword descended from the sky, slashing towards the Son of Heaven swordmaster. Boundless Imperial Tao. As the demonic sword descended, the Son of Heaven sword sovereign let out a deep roar. Dragon roars rang out around him as golden light shone dazzlingly. Within the golden light, streaks of sword light shot up into the sky and collided with the demonic sword. A shocking impact burst out, and the golden sword light broke through the demonic sword. The sword momentum was deflected, and the golden flood swallowed the knowing destiny state cultivators. The 100 suns returned to the east. Ning Chen was still unwilling to back down even half a step. Demonic flames rose around his body as demonic suns surged out. Hundreds of suns materialized and crashed into the golden flood. There was a violent explosion as the 2 forces collided. At the center of the explosion, Ning Chen's body was covered in blood. However, he had to rely on his undying demon body to bear the brunt of the attack. Great Sword Realm, Sword Emperor. Ning Chen's pride was stimulated by the fact that he had never met a sword opponent before. He used all of his moves and a red sword world surged out. Within the sword world, streaks of blood-red lightning appeared. The sword power of the extreme Tao was endless. Within the 9 dragons' protection, the son of Heaven Sword Sovereign looked at the blood-red lightning around him with a solemn expression. Throughout the ages, the Son of Heaven worships the heavens. Facing such a powerful opponent, the son of Heaven Sword Sovereign did not dare to be careless. He slashed the sword with his left hand, and blood instantly dyed the divine sword red. An even more terrifying sword pressure swept out. Within the sword world, 9 huge golden dragons were dyed in blood. The dragon roars were deafening. In an instant, the son of Heaven's sword that was dyed in blood slashed down from the void. With a bang, it directly slashed open the sword world. Boom! The Emperor of Swords and the Master of Swords. The 2 top swordsmen of the world clashed with their swords. Blood splattered and fell like rain. 10 miles, 100 miles, the white-clothed figures smashed mountain after mountain, and blood dyed the 100 peaks red. In front, knowing Destiny State's counterattack also made the son of Heaven Sword Sovereign very uncomfortable. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth as he retreated a few steps. The son of Heaven Sword Sovereign's clothes were almost completely dyed in blood. His previous calmness was completely gone. In the void, the 9 huge golden dragons that coiled around were still incomparably powerful. The invincible legend of the East Border, even though he was injured, still did not show any signs of defeat. Outside the battle, Bai Wangyu looked into the distance, and his eyes darkened. This time, could he still stand up? In the distance, in the collapsed mountain, Ning Chen, who was covered in blood, staggered to his feet. His face was covered in blood. He clenched the 2 swords in his hands and said angrily, "Again!" In the void, the son of Heaven's Sword Sovereign descended from the sky. He looked at the former and said in a deep voice, "It has been 10,000 years. Among the countless opponents I have met, I am willing to call you the strongest." As he said this, the son of Heaven's Sword Sovereign held his sword in front of him. The blood-stained son of Heaven's Sword exploded with a shocking brilliance. At this moment, the already incomparably powerful legend of Sword's power was still rising. In the mountain, Ning Chen shouted. Around him, 4 immortal swords appeared at the same time. The 4 immortal swords gathered again. The 4 swords resonated with each other, and thunder surged. Ning Chen activated the last of the power in his body, attaching 4 different kinds of origin power to the immortal swords. In an instant, the power of the 4 immortal swords rose sharply. The power of the immortal swords shook the divine sun of the 9 heavens. The fierce battle alarmed the strongest cultivators in the distant regions. In front of the Sunrise Divine Palace, the Sunrise Flood God walked out. He looked at the Eastern Divine World, and his eyes narrowed. "It's the High Priest," said the Moon Goddess. A teary smile appeared on her face. She said, "The High Priest has finally met an expert of the Way of the Sword who can truly fight to his heart's content. Is the Way of the Sword so maddening?" The Sunrise Flood God looked to the east and said calmly, "If one hears the Way in the morning, it is enough to die in the evening. Perhaps in the eyes of the High Priest and other swordsmen, the sword is everything," said the Moon Goddess softly. The High Priest's sword was tied down too much by the world. She hoped so much that one day, the High Priest's sword could truly bloom without regard for anything else. Perhaps today was the day she had been waiting for. In the Eastern Divine World, 2 eye-catching beams of sword light soared into the sky. At the end of the battle, the 2 top swordsmen of the world exploded with their strongest sword will. The blinding sword light illuminated the dark world. Sword technique, judgment of heaven and earth. In the battle, 4 immortal swords soared into the sky. The terrifying sword pressure split the clouds and split the sky in half. In front, the sword master of the Son of Heaven was also fearless. The sword of heaven and earth flew out, and 9 dragons coiled around it. Throughout the ages, my Tao is boundless. The 2 strongest moves were earth-shattering. In the sky, the 2 sword pressures collided with each other. It was a shocking scene. In the sky, the two sword pressures vibrated continuously. They were in a stalemate. At this moment, below, in Ning Chen's body, the suppressed origin of the four symbols erupted again. With a muffled groan, a waterfall of blood gushed out from Ning Chen's body. In the sky, the stalemate between the sword pressures suddenly changed. The 9 dragons broke through the sword formation formed by the 4 immortal swords and pressed down. In the moment of danger, the celestial ending sword flew back to protect its master. The 9 dragons shaking celestial sword was in a stalemate for a moment. Cracks appeared on the immortal sword, and the reforged immortal sword collapsed again. With a boom, the immortal sword broke, and fragments flew everywhere. With the immortal sword destroyed, the broken sword exploded with its last power. The bloodline power in the sword spread out, and a terrifying cold air spread, freezing everything. In the battle, time and space quickly froze, and everything came to a standstill. In an instant, the 9 golden dragons shattered, and the aftershocks spread out. The sword master of the Son of Heaven was hit, and blood spurted out from the corner of his mouth. With a splash of blood, he took a few steps back. 10 steps away, the sword master of the Son of Heaven barely stabilized himself. He looked at the frozen world in front of him with shock. In the frozen world, 4 broken immortal swords stabbed into the ground, and their light was abnormally dim. In the middle of the immortal swords, Ning Chen's clothes were dyed red with blood. He couldn't move, but his battle intent didn't decrease. The sword master of the Son of Heaven's expression became more and more serious. The opponent in front of him had amazing willpower. In front of him, Ji Ming's body was dyed red, and he didn't even have the strength to move. However, the sword master of the Son of Heaven's sword didn't dare to be careless. He raised his ultimate essence again, and the Son of Heaven's sword slashed down. As the sword light approached, the heaven and earth spirit chi around Ning Chen surged violently, turning into colorless dragons that surged out. His body couldn't move, but his powerful divine sense urged the heaven and earth spirit chi to turn into dragons. The Qi Huang secret technique and the Son of Heaven's sword clashed, and the dragons quickly collapsed, unable to block the Son of Heaven's sword. The sword Qi broke through the air and pierced through Ning Chen's body. Ning Chen's body was hit by the sword Qi, and he slid back 100 steps. Drops of blood dripped down, dyeing the frozen ground red. His unyielding battle spirit was still burning. As a swordsman, he wouldn't rest until he died. Gradually, the frozen ground below Ning Chen began to collapse, and everything seemed to be rejuvenated. The tremors went from light to intense. Around Ning Chen, the flowers and trees began to shake. The sword master of the Son of Heaven's sword felt something, and his expression became serious. This sword pressure was not good. Before he finished thinking, an unprecedented sword intent spread out in the battle. There was no self, no competition, no desire. There was no limit to the sword. Wherever the sword intent passed, the fallen leaves were used as swords, heaven and earth were used as swords, and everything in the universe was used as swords. The grass and trees flew up, and the fallen leaves fell. In a flash, they all turned into sword light and broke through the air. The Son of Heaven's sword master focused, and golden light rose around him. The Emperor's sword intent blocked the heavy sword light. The endless sword light had no beginning and no end. The Son of Heaven's sword master walked in the sword light, and his footsteps became heavier. The distance of 100 steps seemed insurmountable now. The Son of Heaven's sword master looked at the young man who was almost unconscious in front of him, and the respect in his expression grew stronger. Such an opponent was worthy of respect. Outside the battle, Bai Wangyu looked at the battle in front of him. He clenched his fists and suppressed the urge to attack. It wasn't time yet. He hadn't lost yet. Around Ning Chen, the 4 broken immortal swords shook violently. The swords wailed and kept asking to fight. Even though his body was broken, his fighting spirit was still not extinguished. It was the same for people and swords. In the middle of the 4 immortal swords, Ji Ming, who was almost unconscious, seemed to have felt the immortal swords asking to fight, and finally opened his mouth again. Raise your sword. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.